Oh, hello, boys and ghouls. It's me, your favorite creep from the deep, Jacques Cousteau. You're just in time. I'm about to dive into tonight's tale. Care to join me? Good. Then strap on a couple of scare tanks and prepare yourselves for a cold, wet exploration of my favorite kind of marine life. Croakers. Oops. It concerns a couple of boosome buddies who are about to put their relationship to rest. I call it Operation Friendship.
Great presentation, Jack. That accounting program you wrote was a work of genius.
Thanks.
Hey, Jack, you gotta take a look at this. I've been working on the accounting program, and are you going to the meeting?
Coming from it.
Oh, God. I forgot the meeting. I can't believe I missed the meeting.
It's okay. I handled it.
Jack, McFarland just called with a question about the program you wrote. He wants to know, can we make it voice activated?
The accounting program?
Jack did a great job. Jack?
Yeah, I can do that. Tell McFarland if he wants it voice activated, he's got it.
I got a feeling those VP stripes are just a matter of time.
You told him you wrote the program?
Well, I don't think I used those exact words. Hey, about this voice activated idea. Can we do it?
You mean, can I do it?
Hey, look, I'm going places in this company. You heard what she said. And when I make the move into a cushy corner office, who do you think I'm taking with me? You, of course, right?
Yeah, well...
Don't make this difficult. I've got a lot more friends at this company than you do. Capiche? So, how fast can you get this voice thing up and running?
Right through here, fellas. Oh. Excuse me. Right through here?
No, I live right here.
Oh. God, I'm sorry. Oh. I gotta run. See you later.
Daddy's home! Daddy's home!
Eddie, not tonight. Had a really rotten day.
Oh, well, that's too bad. Because we had a very special evening lined up. Beginning with a little Peeping Tom action, starring the voluptuous blonde in the building across the street. Yeesh! Put it back on, honey.
Eddie.
And in our cooking segment this evening, we'll be demonstrating how even the most disgusting leftover can be made even more disgusting by simply nuking it too long. Warning, 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 warning. And finally, we'll pay yet another fun-filled visit to our friends on the internet in a segment that I like to call Am I bulletin board or what? Okay, Buster, what is it this time?
Okay, I don't want to talk about it.
Sing a name. Yes, a name with 4 letters. And the first letter is J.
Eddie, I told you I don't want to talk about it.
You know, it's amazing. It's amazing. You do all the work, and that dickhead gets all the credit. How much longer do you want to put up with that? You'll know what I say, don't you? I say we kneecap the cockroach. I say we cut him up into little pieces, and we give him to the friggin' rats. Aren't you getting tired of this crap? I mean, is this how you want things to be for the rest of your life? Look, don't take this personal. But I am going out of my nut here. Something's got to give, or I'm not going to be held responsible for my actions.
I got work I gotta do.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to be helpful here. I mean, we're friends, right? Answer the question.
Yes, you're my only friend.
Well, don't make it sound so appealing. Look, Nelson, you know how I feel about you. You mean everything to me. I live for you, man. Look, what I'm saying is that we're in a rut. And it's getting deeper and deeper every day. And pretty soon, we're not gonna be able to climb out of it. You expecting somebody?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm your new neighbor from across the hall. Am I bothering you?
No.
Let's go. What does she look like?
Phone company didn't show up today. I was hoping maybe I could use your phone.
If she's a pig, say no.
Typical, right?
Yeah, sure, come on in.
Oh, babe, let me out. Let me out.
I'm Jane, by the way.
Nelson.
It's very nice to meet you.
The phone's right there.
Thanks.
Sure.
I just need to check my answering service.
Okay.
Hey, do you know of any good Chinese in the area?
Oh, well, you know, I have a program. I'll check for you.
Really?
Yeah. Are you in the mood for anything specific?
Szechuan.
Szechuan. Who used Szechuan? It's a great restaurant, but the delivery takes forever.
Well, the last thing I want to do is eat at home tonight.
Oh, Who Use is at 3rd and Mesa.
Great. Well, thank you very much for letting me use your phone, and
Sure.
it was wonderful meeting you.
Oh, yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, you want to see my egg roll? What's wrong with you?
I'm sorry.
Oh, nothing. No.
Okay, well, bye.
Bye.
Boy, a lot of fun you
Don't
are.
ever do that to me again.
I didn't do anything. She was hot. You should have asked her out.
I don't know who she is.
So what are we gonna do instead? Nothing again?
I hate eating alone. Would you have dinner with me?
Say yes.
Yes! 야모 성체, 령튜, 거의?
Wow. Where did you learn to speak Chinese?
Oh, well, I taught it to myself. My company had a Chinese client, a corporation, and I just figured it'd be easier to learn the language if I was programming for him. So I was fascinated with the culture.
Really? That's amazing.
Well,
Don't you think it's amazing? You know, you're allowed to think it of yourself. Well, sometimes anyway.
I guess, yeah.
Well, believe me, it's pretty amazing. Listen, I just wanted to thank you for coming out with me. I have a real thing about eating alone. The whole idea of being alone is hard enough. It just seems that much harder over dinner.
I know exactly what you mean.
Holy mackerel! What's that, knackers?
Are you all right?
Hey, relax. You're the one who brought me here.
So, what do you do?
I work for the school system.
Doesn't look like you're gonna teach us that I remember.
That must be very rewarding for you.
Yeah.
Would you like some tea?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, baby, I love your dumplings. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, there's nothing
how
like
much?
a hot tea. It's good.
Bring on the entree. Oh, Anyway, I'd like to check out tonight's special, please.
Excuse me, I drank my,
Is that the catch today? Looks mighty tasty.
Eddie, just give me a break, would you? Just this once, just leave me alone. I'll do whatever you want, all right?
I think we'll have that to go.
Hi.
Got it. So you're a teacher?
No. Actually, I'm a psychologist.
Say what? Ow!
Really?
Yeah. Someday I'll go into private practice, but for now I really enjoy what I'm doing.
Tell her you gotta go. Tell her you're not feeling well. Tell her you got work to do. Tell her that the dog pound makes daily deliveries to this place.
You know, I could have used someone like you to talk to when I was a kid.
Why is that?
Are you out of your mind? Will you shut up?
Well, I didn't have a lot of friends. I was a lot younger than most of my classmates.
So was I.
Do you remember the last time you told someone about me? Do you remember Sister Mary, what's her name, back in the 2nd grade? How she tried to break us up?
Would you excuse me?
Nelson, don't you do it. Don't you do it!
So, what were you saying?
I was the 3rd youngest to graduate from my college.
Really?
Yeah, I can't imagine the hell that the other 2 people went through.
Yeah. Well, that was a lot of fun. I had a really good time, and
Yeah, it was...
thanks.
Well, maybe I could knock another night.
Yeah. I mean, I'm right here, so you know, you don't have to go far.
Well, good night, neighbor.
Good night.
Don't you ever do that to me again.
I was trying to have a conversation. You are the one who wanted me to go out in the first place.
That's before I knew what she was like. This is bad for us. Don't you get that?
Why? Because she's a psychologist?
Yes, that's got something to do with it. Also, the fact that you like her doesn't help a whole lot either.
Eddie.
Let me clue you in on something, mister. I've been with you almost 30 years. 30 years at your beck and call. Now how much long do you think that bimbo is going to stick around? A week, 2, maybe?
Eddie, don't be like this. I don't know her. All we did was go out to dinner.
Spare me. But I know what you're feeling, okay? I know everything. I don't want any part of this. I always wonder when this is going to happen.
Nothing happened. Where are you going?
You think that I'm going to wait around while you decide you don't need me anymore? Well, thanks, but no thanks.
Eddie.
You know what day it is, Nelson? Friday. I told Thelma you'd have that voice-activated thing ready by Tuesday. Last Tuesday.
I'm sorry. I just I can't really concentrate. I'm having some personal problems.
Well, you're gonna have an even bigger problem here at the office if you don't get that program written.
And another thing.
Oh, come on, Jack. Just leave me alone.
So, this is the office, huh? And that dickhead, I take it, was Jack?
Eddie. Thank God you're here. Where the hell have you been?
Yeah, you know, I've been here and there, you know, thinking about things. Boy, no wonder you never brought me here. Snooze-a-rama! So, how things with you and the missus?
Yeah. Well, I haven't seen her since you left. I knocked on her door a few times, but I guess you're right. You are my only friend.
Well, I hate to be the one to say that I told you so, but I told you so. It's too bad you didn't get anything, though. I mean, she had some great tits. Boy, you could fit a whole army inside those underpants. Anything on the net tonight?
Nah, nothing but newbies. Probably have some dinner.
Oh, goody, crank up the microwave.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Well, Much better now, actually. The day after we had dinner, I woke up sick as a dog.
Are you kidding? Oh my God! It was the what? It was the Chinese? Was it the
No,
Chinese?
no, it was nothing like that. I mean, you know, you work around kids and you pick up all sorts of things. It's
Oh
just...
yeah, yeah. So you know, you should have called me because I would have come over. I knocked, but
Well, I couldn't even get out of bed, and I would have called you, but you know, the phone company didn't hook up my phone until today. So, anyway, I'm back and I'm healthy and I'm hungry as a horse. So, how about dinner?
Yeah, that would be great.
Great, because I've already cooked it.
Oh, great. Can I, I'll be there in a second if I could. I'll be right back. I'll be there.
Okay.
How sweet. The lovebirds are reunited.
Eddie?
I won't say another word.
Wow. This is such a great place.
Well, I still have a lot of unpacking to do. Thank you.
Sure.
You know, I've been thinking a lot about you.
Yeah?
I'm not usually this forward. Well, not recently, anyway. But I had such a great time with you the other night. I don't know, I felt so relaxed, and yet it's strange. It's almost as if there was something touching me.
Touching?
Yeah, like hands. Here. Here. Never felt anything quite like it. Do you mind if I kiss you?
No.
Is it good for you, too?
Eddie, please.
Okay, you got what you wanted. Now let's move on.
What do you mean, move on?
You and her, over. I'm afraid I can't let you do that to me anymore. Close, but no cigar.
Eddie?
I figured out lots of things while I was away, Nelson. Lots of things.
Eddie, it's okay. You don't have to go.
I wasn't planning to. The way I figured, she's the one going someplace. I'll tell you what. Pick up a pillow.
What?
Yeah, pick up a pillow and put it on her face.
Pick it up!
No, I'm not gonna pick it up.
Okay, that's fine. Let me show you another trick that I learned.
Nelson Patrick Demirs, you think you're so smart? I'll show you what smart is.
Pretty good, huh? Sister Mary, what's her name? She never did like you much. Hey, check this out.
Hey, Demirs, you better start running.
Jimmy McKenna, boy, did he used to kick the shit out of you.
Well, you're gonna have an even bigger problem if you don't get that program written.
Oh, please.
Nelson Patrick Demirs,
Hey,
you
Demirs.
think you're so smart? I'll
You're
show
gonna
you
have
what's
a bigger
smart.
problem if you don't get that program written.
Better start
Bigger
running.
problem if you don't get that
Start
program
running.
written. You're gonna have a bigger problem if you don't get that program written.
So smart. I'll show you
running.
what's
You're gonna have a
smart
bigger
is.
problem if you don't get that program written.
Tip of the iceberg, Nelson. Man, this shit runs deep and dark inside your head. You think Sleeping Beauty there is gonna save you from all this like I have? I don't think so.
I'll show you
Start running.
Pick up the pillow.
I'll show you what's smart.
That's right.
So smart.
You know what to do. Do it. Do it.
Come on, Nelson. Do it.
You can run, but you can't hide. Damn you! I'm gonna miss you, pal.
Yeah, of course I'll be home for dinner. I just got a few finishing touches to do on this program, and then I got a few finishing touches that got your name on it, all right? I love you, Jane. Jack, get in here! Jack. What? Where's the schedule for the voice activation presentation? It's supposed to be on my desk yesterday.
I'm working on it.
Are you working on it? Well, work faster, dickhead.
Watch it. Nelson, I can't tell you how impressed we've been with your performance lately. These past few days, it's like you're a new man or something.
Oh, well, I'll tell you, Thelma, the only person holding me back before was me. So I simply, gotten me out of the way.
Well, whatever you did, it worked. I see VP stripes in your future.
Poor Nelson. 1 minute he's in charge, the next he's aghast in his own home. As for me, kiddies, I'm afraid I've given up my water wings for dry land. My producers insist I get a little R and horror. Uh-oh, looks like I've got something. I just love eyes fishing. Thanks, pal, for nothing. I tell you, kiddies, things are tough all over. What with my expenses going up, and suddenly finding out I owe the IRS a fortune, your pal the Crypt Keeper's had to find himself a second job. Still, it's worse for the people in tonight's Terror-tale. It concerns a group of inmates at the local home who've got a few horrid choices of their own to make. I call it revenge is the nuts.
goddamn bathroom again. Son of a bitch! I hear you, Grunwald. You no-good, scum-sucking... Damn! You think you got me this time, do you?
Don't panic, Samuel. I'm coming.
And I'm going. Right in this goddamn office.
In your pants, Sammy boy.
In your eye! Shit for brains.
The 710 split on the slider.
Oh, shit!
Yes! God, I love this game.
It ain't right, Arnie.
Mr. Grunwald Doofus, how many times do I have to tell you that to you, I am Mr. Grunwald? There's a girl in my office.
She's in your sitting room. Mr. Grunwald, can I help Samuel now?
Keep it up, Four Eyes, and your dog meat. Now go find the girl.
Hello? Hello? I'm blind, not stupid.
The seat's just ahead of you on your right. You can learn a lot from a woman's shoes. Screamers usually wear spiked heels, tight asses pumps. I wonder how combat boots will fit in.
Oh, keep it in your pants.
I see. Angry, are we? Well, let me set you straight, Sheila. It is Sheila, isn't it? You're here under my care because the county put you here. So for at least the next 6 months, you can consider yourself one of my subjects.
Well, who the hell died made you king?
In the land of the blind, even the one-eyed man is king. If you know what's good for you, you'll do things my way. Benny! Take Cinderella here to the ballroom. What do you think, Mother? Prime piece of meat, yes? You jealous old bitch.
What a scumbag that guy is. Why don't you leave me to the front door and just let me out of this place, all right?
No, ma'am, I can't. Mr. Grunwald he'd be very upset.
His problem anyway. His mother didn't take him around for Halloween.
No, ma'am. His mother was blind. Just like you.
Come on, be a sport. Let me go. I'll make it worth your while.
No. You don't understand.
You're Grunwald's boy. I understand fine.
No, you don't understand. You don't understand. If I cross him, he'll send me back.
Where?
State hospital. Reedville.
It's a mental hospital, isn't it? What'd they lock you up for?
My brother. My brother had me committed.
Sorry about that, Chief. You just been shafted.
Everybody, this is Sheila. Sheila, this is everybody. Now, your bed is just 4 beds down on the right. It's just the end of the room. There's a blanket and some extra clothes if you want them. Mr. Grunwald, he gets those clothes for free from the country club.
This place smells horrible.
It grows on you, literally.
Well, sorry, pal, I ain't staying. Hey! Hey! Is there a window in this place? Somebody answer me!
Yeah, we got windows, but they've all been boarded up. Mr. Grunwald think blind people don't need no light.
Well, I don't understand. I thought his mother was blind.
She was. If she hadn't left this place to the state and cut him out of her will, none of us would have to have anything to do with that asshole.
What the hell is that?
You're straight out of Atlanta.
Every hour on the hour.
Shit, I gotta get out of this place. I can't.
Now, calm down, honey. Calm down. No use fighting a choke chain.
Look, that might work for some people, but it does nothing for me.
You ain't getting out, sugar. Now, that's the point. I mean, you might get as far as the front door. Osgood made it there once. Matter of fact, that's Osgood's foot you got in your hand right now. At least, what's left of it after Grunwald's dog got hold of it.
Oh, God! Oh, God!
Bruno, shut up! If you're that hungry, dig up Mother in the garden.
Here she is, Mr. Grunwald.
Benny. Say ah. Hole in one.
Look, you slimy bastard, I am not like the others. I'm not gonna lie down while you take advantage of me.
Interesting turn of phrase. Render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, and unto God that which is God's.
What?
The other day, didn't you offer Benny a little something if he'd let you go?
Son of a bitch.
No, don't blame Benny. It wasn't his fault. I was right behind him. I heard the whole thing. The problem is, you were talking to the wrong person.
So if I sleep with you, you'll let me go?
Well, it's not quite that easy. I'm really not that big on one-night stands. If you want to leave, we'll have to take it one day or night at a time.
Up yours.
Not really my style. Strip away this thin veneer of sophistication, and underneath, you'll find I'm just an upfront kind of guy. Benny! Take the blind bitch away.
It's okay. I'll take you back.
Thank you, Benny. I'd appreciate that.
I really think you should reconsider my offer. I can be very persuasive when I want to be.
Look who's back.
Listen, none of us deserves to be here. We haven't done a damn thing.
We all been through this. We all raged against it. But at the end of the night, here we are.
Oh, no, not for long. You know Benny's keychain? He's got a little pocket knife that hangs on it.
Yeah?
I borrowed it.
Oh.
Where's the nearest way out of here?
Through Grunwald's office. It's the only way. You sure about this?
Yes.
Ah, Sheila. I'd like to introduce you to Bruno, who'll be handling security here from now on. It's only fair to warn you he hasn't eaten for 2 days, and he's particularly fond of fresh meat. Isn't that so, Osgood? So, if there are no objections, I suggest you all return to your quarters. Oh, dear. You can keep that little pig sticker. I don't think Bruno will be particularly concerned.
Knife was for you, asshole.
Where the hell you been, boy? I was beginning to think we weren't gonna get fed at all today.
Sorry, everybody. Just one meal a day from now on.
Low-life son of a bitch.
Here you go. I'm sorry, miss.
Didn't want his lousy food anyway.
Can't we at least get some heat in here?
Mr. Grunwald says... Grunwald says, Miss, he changed his offer. He's not gonna let you go if you sleep with him. But he said that he'd turn the heat up and bring the rations back to normal. I wish there was something I could do.
It's not your fault, Benny. You're a prisoner just like the rest of us. Well, now, how long could it possibly take?
Don't be ridiculous, girl. We can't let you do that.
Well, it's not like I gotta look at him.
We ain't that cold nor hungry. Not yet.
It's like you said, Samuel. No use fighting a choke chain.
No. 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 We're not gonna let you do it. And that's the end of it.
Ay, biggest chain.
Osgood?
Let the girl go. What the hell? Let's do Gunwald's way for a change.
I thought this was how it would turn out. I'm only sorry it took so long.
What can I say? Whistler learner.
Why do I find that hard to believe? To blind love.
Shall I undress?
Why don't you leave that to me? What's soft? What light through yonder window breaks? You want to play rough? We can play rough.
It's all right, miss. It's me, Benny. My brother's not gonna bother you anymore.
Benny! 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 To pay when I get out of here, Benny. Hell to pay. Reedville, Benny! Back to Reedville! You know what that means? Shock treatment, Benny! Electricity! Ow! What the? clever, Benny. I'm getting out of here. And when I do, I'm going to my office. And when I get there...
Sit. Good girl. Hello there, Arnie. We can't find the food anywhere. Bruno's awfully hungry.
Now listen to me, you little pissant. You haven't got the guts.
That's okay, because we do.
I'm your own flesh and blood, for God's sake.
So was Mama. But you killed her anyway.
It was an accident. She tripped on the goddamn marble.
I may be a little crazy, Arnie, but not stupid.
But what are you going to do when they call for Mr. Grunwald, huh? What are you going to do then?
Oh, I'm Mr. Grunwald.
In your eye. Shit for brains.
Say goodnight, Grunwald.
That Grunwald. One little problem and he goes right to pieces. At least now we know what's really eating him. As for me, kiddies, I think I've got my money problems licked. I don't know why I didn't think of this sooner. Talk about a killing. Everybody loves finger food. Hey, you want a side of ghoul slaw with that?
The rain had been falling for hours, a relentless drum on the tin roofs of the crumbling tenement buildings lining the empty streets of Greystone. It was the kind of rain that didn't cleanse but suffocated, leaving a slick, greasy sheen on the asphalt, reflecting the pale yellow street lamps that flickered intermittently like dying fireflies. In apartment 4B, on the top floor of one such building, a man sat alone in a darkened room, the shadows hugging the corners as if they had life of their own. He was hunched over a small, scratched wooden table, a single desk lamp illuminating the scattered papers before him. His name was Leonard Pike, and he had spent the last 2 weeks planning a kind of operation that would change the very definition of friendship. Leonard was not the kind of man people noticed in crowds, but he had the kind of mind that could manipulate attention without effort. His hazel eyes, magnified by thick glasses, darted across the documents, diagrams, and notes that littered the table. There were sketches of apartment layouts, photographs of unsuspecting neighbors, and maps detailing surveillance points, all meticulously drawn in ink. Each page was organized with precise headings. Phase 1, Observation. Phase 2, Engagement. Phase 3, Intervention. Leonard's fingers tapped nervously on the table, betraying the calm he tried to maintain, and the distant sound of the rain seemed to sync with the rapid beat of his heart. He had moved to Greystone 6 months ago, under the pretense of needing a fresh start, a quiet man seeking isolation. Yet, what Leonard really sought was connection, a deeper, almost obsessive connection with the people around him. Not casual acquaintances or polite smiles in the elevator, but true, unwavering bonds. Bonds that could be tested, molded, and controlled. That was where the operation came in. Operation Friendship, as he called it. It was not merely about friendship. It was about influence, leverage, and, if necessary, manipulation. Across the hall, apartment 4C housed Mrs. Agnes Holloway, a retired schoolteacher with a penchant for knitting and a habit of humming old jazz tunes while watering her plants. Leonard had watched her every morning from his peephole as she stepped out onto her balcony, carefully arranging pots of begonias and ferns. He noted the way she greeted her mail carrier, how she arranged her kitchen utensils, even the frequency of her coughs. It was all data, all fuel for his operation. He didn't just observe, he cataloged. And in those catalogs, Leonard began to see patterns that suggested an ideal candidate for what he envisioned. Then there was young Mark Hollister in 3A, a struggling artist who spent his nights scribbling in journals and his days working odd jobs at a convenience store. Leonard had followed Mark's routines with the same obsessive attention, noting the specific hours he left for work, the narrow alley he took to avoid traffic, and the way he would pause under a flickering neon sign at exactly 6:17 p.m., checking his phone as if expecting a message. Leonard smiled at this minor coincidence. Mark was already walking into the operation without realizing it. It began with small interactions, an accidental bump in the hallway, a casual hello at the mailbox, the kind of gestures anyone would consider ordinary. Leonard cataloged every response with meticulous detail. When Mrs. Holloway smiled, when Mark hesitated before replying, when a stray dog wandered past, they were all data points, building toward a crescendo that only Leonard could anticipate. And then there was the night he decided to take the first step into engagement. He crafted a series of letters, unsigned, handwritten in a careful, legible script. The letters were innocuous in appearance, friendly even, a little too perfectly casual. One would be slipped under Mrs. Holloway's door. "Dear neighbor, I noticed your garden. It is beautiful. Would you like some seeds? Yours, a friend." For Mark, he left a sketch in the mailbox, a rough pencil drawing of the hallway where Leonard had first seen him pause under the neon sign. Both were small gestures, seemingly random acts of kindness, but each was calculated to pique curiosity, to stir a sense of intrigue. The operation escalated in subtlety. Leonard began orchestrating coincidences. He timed meetings in the laundry room, left coffee cups in communal areas, created the illusion that fate, or luck, was orchestrating their encounters. And yet, there was always a method beneath the chaos. Every action, every smile, every incidental conversation was choreographed, rehearsed in Leonard's mind before it ever reached reality. He considered himself a conductor, his apartment the stage, the residents unwitting performers. By the third week, both Mrs. Holloway and Mark had begun to acknowledge his presence more consistently. Mrs. Holloway left a bowl of freshly baked cookies on her balcony, as if offering a silent invitation to an unspoken camaraderie. Mark had started leaving sketches outside his door, some of them depicting imaginary cityscapes, others capturing moments that Leonard had engineered. Each gesture was a thread in the web Leonard had spun, weaving them closer to his vision of friendship. But Leonard's obsession was not purely benign. He saw weaknesses in the people around him, fissures in their personalities and lives that could be gently exploited. Mrs. Holloway's loneliness, Mark's insecurity, the sense of isolation that clung to them, they were the raw materials for Operation Friendship. Leonard's mind was a laboratory, each interaction an experiment, and yet, beneath the meticulous planning, a strange unease gnawed at him. It was subtle, a whisper in the back of his mind that perhaps he was not merely fostering friendship but manipulating, controlling, bending reality to his will. He dismissed the thought with a shake of his head. A small price to pay for connection, he reasoned. Friendship, in its purest form, was rare, almost impossible to attain. Why should he not take the reins, ensure that it existed where it mattered most? Leonard believed in the righteousness of his cause, a moral certainty that blurred the lines between good and bad. It was on a particularly stormy night that Leonard decided to escalate the operation. The rain lashed against the windows, the wind howled through the narrow alleyways, and the streets were deserted save for the occasional flash of headlights. Leonard set up a small camera in the hallway, its lens peering through the peephole with mechanical precision. He wanted to capture the unguarded moments, the unfiltered reactions of his targets. It was not enough to influence them. He needed to observe the effects, to validate the operation in real time. Mrs. Holloway stepped out onto her balcony, umbrella in hand, drawn to the storm despite herself. Mark emerged from his apartment moments later, carrying an overstuffed satchel, the strap digging into his shoulder. Leonard watched them converge in the hallway, two lives intersecting under circumstances he had meticulously constructed. A brief nod, a shared comment about the weather, and Leonard felt a surge of triumph. The operation was working. The seeds had been planted. Yet, there was an unpredictable element that Leonard had not accounted for. The very human capacity for instinct, for spontaneity. Mrs. Holloway laughed at a joke Mark made, a sound pure and uncalculated. Mark responded with an improvisation, a playful gesture that deviated from Leonard's script. The beauty and terror of life collided in that moment, a reminder that even the most carefully orchestrated plan could not fully control reality. Leonard's fingers tightened around the edge of the table, a mixture of exhilaration and unease coursing through him. Operation Friendship was no longer just a plan. It had taken on a life of its own, evolving beyond his control, and yet he could not stop. The thrill, the obsession, the desperate yearning for connection. It drove him forward, each interaction a step deeper into a web that was becoming more intricate, more dangerous. By the early hours of the morning, the rain had ceased, leaving a heavy, damp silence in its wake. Leonard leaned back in his chair, exhausted but invigorated, eyes fixed on the sketches and letters that marked the first phase of his operation. The room seemed to breathe with him, the shadows moving subtly, almost sentient, as if acknowledging the birth of something extraordinary. He whispered to himself, a mantra that felt both triumphant and ominous. Friendship can be engineered. Friendship can be perfected. And I will be its architect. Outside, the city slept, unaware of the meticulous plotting happening in apartment 4B. The stage was set, the players moving unknowingly toward an encounter that would test the limits of trust, influence, and human connection. Leonard Pike, the quiet man with obsessive intent, smiled. Tomorrow would be the beginning of Phase 2, and Operation Friendship would take its next decisive steps. The line between kindness and manipulation had already begun to blur, and Leonard could not have been more thrilled. And so, in the dim light of his apartment, surrounded by rain-streaked windows and the scent of old paper and ink, Leonard Pike waited. The operation had begun, and nothing, neither circumstance nor chance nor human unpredictability, would deter him from seeing it through to the end. Morning arrived with a gray, suffocating fog that hung low over Greystone, muffling the city's usual clamor and casting everything in a pallid, almost unnatural light. Leonard Pike stirred from a restless sleep, his mind already racing with the tasks ahead. Phase 2 of Operation Friendship was about to begin, and he knew there was no room for error. Breakfast was a mechanical routine: black coffee, a slice of dry toast, a cursory glance at the morning paper, but his eyes never left the window. Across the alley, Mrs. Holloway's curtains fluttered faintly in the breeze, revealing a glimpse of her bent frame moving among her plants. Mark had yet to emerge, though Leonard anticipated him, confident in the predictability of his carefully observed routines. The first task of the day was engagement. Leonard had prepared a series of small coincidences, meticulously timed and delivered with the appearance of spontaneity. He knew that true friendship, in the form he envisioned, would require shared experiences, moments that felt intimate yet unplanned. It was a delicate balance. Too overt, and suspicion would arise. Too subtle, and the bonds would never take hold. He selected a notebook from the shelf, filled with lists and sketches, and began to review the day's carefully arranged interactions. At precisely 9:07 a.m., Leonard stepped into the hallway, holding a small package wrapped in plain brown paper. He had positioned it outside Mrs. Holloway's door earlier, making it appear as if it had been misplaced by a delivery courier. The contents were simple: a packet of rare flower seeds, each chosen for its unique bloom and symbolic meaning. He had written a brief note in delicate script. "For your garden. May it flourish as your kindness does. A friend." Leonard's pulse quickened as he slid the package under the door, imagining the moment Mrs. Holloway would discover it. It was an act both innocent and insidious, a minor manipulation masked as generosity. Moments later, he retreated to the stairwell, positioning himself near the landing where Mark often paused on his way out. The young artist emerged, fumbling with his satchel, and Leonard intercepted him with a casual comment. "I think someone left this for you," he said, offering a small sketch, a new image, one of an empty street corner under the rain. Mark's eyes lit up with curiosity, and he examined the pencil lines with a thoughtful smile. "Thanks," he muttered, a hint of warmth creeping into his tone. Leonard noted the inflection, cataloging it alongside previous interactions, every small response a confirmation of progress. By mid-morning, Leonard returned to his apartment, reviewing security footage from the camera he had discreetly placed in the hallway. The footage revealed subtle changes in behavior. Mrs. Holloway lingering slightly longer in the communal corridor, peeking curiously at the brown paper package. Mark hesitating, glancing at the sketch with a faint, thoughtful frown. Leonard's satisfaction was tempered by the realization that human unpredictability could still disrupt his plans. Yet, he embraced the challenge. Operation Friendship was evolving, and the human element, messy, flawed, yet profoundly fascinating, was an essential variable in the experiment. As the day progressed, Leonard increased the frequency of these orchestrated encounters. He introduced minor, seemingly accidental obstacles that forced interaction. A jammed door in the laundry room that required Mrs. Holloway and Mark to negotiate its opening together, a spillage of water near the mailboxes that prompted a shared, fleeting moment of laughter. Each incident was designed to create a sense of connection, to simulate the randomness of life while subtly guiding the participants toward the intimacy Leonard craved. By late afternoon, the fog had lifted, replaced by a heavy, oppressive heat that pressed against the buildings and made the city feel claustrophobic. Leonard moved through his apartment with the precision of a general commanding a battlefield, arranging objects, rechecking notes, and preparing for the evening's engagements. He had selected a small cafe 2 blocks away as the next stage of interaction, a neutral space where the residents could meet without the overt influence of his watchful eyes. He placed a notebook on a nearby table, filled with reminders, sketches, and possible conversation prompts, each a tool in the meticulous orchestration of their growing rapport. At 5:23 p.m., Leonard observed the first sign of true vulnerability. Mrs. Holloway, previously reserved and composed, lingered near the cafe entrance, her hands trembling slightly as she fumbled with her umbrella. Leonard's pulse quickened. This was the moment he had anticipated. Vulnerability, in his mind, was the key to trust, the gateway to the deeper connections he sought. Mark arrived shortly afterward, his presence hesitant yet deliberate. Leonard noted the small gestures, the avoidance of direct eye contact, the tentative step forward, the subtle shift in posture. These were signs that the operation was working, that the delicate threads he had woven were beginning to tighten. Inside the cafe, Leonard engineered further interactions. He accidentally dropped a napkin near their table, providing a pretext for conversation. "Excuse me," he said casually, retrieving it with a practiced smile. The brief exchange sparked a dialogue that grew naturally from the initial gesture, allowing Leonard to observe, guide, and subtly manipulate the tone and direction. He cataloged their reactions with obsessive detail, noting which words elicited warmth, which pauses hinted at discomfort, and which moments of laughter were genuine. Each observation became another building block in his growing psychological blueprint of their personalities. As evening descended, Leonard orchestrated one final engagement for the day. He arranged for Mrs. Holloway and Mark to share a brief walk through the narrow streets, a route he had carefully planned to maximize interaction while minimizing external interference. The streetlights flickered overhead, casting long shadows that danced across the wet pavement. Leonard followed discreetly, maintaining enough distance to remain unseen but close enough to capture every nuance of their behavior. Their conversation was halting at first, polite, measured, but gradually it became more personal, revealing small confidences and mutual curiosities. Leonard's satisfaction was palpable. The operation was entering its most delicate phase. Yet, beneath the triumph, a creeping doubt began to take root. Leonard observed the way Mrs. Holloway laughed at a joke Mark made, genuine and unprompted, and he felt a pang of unease. Was this still his design, or had human spontaneity begun to override his meticulous orchestration? Mark's own improvisation, a playful comment about the rain, carried a note of authenticity that Leonard had not anticipated. The line between manipulation and natural connection blurred, and for the first time he wondered if Operation Friendship could truly be controlled, or if it had gained a life of its own. Returning to his apartment late that evening, Leonard felt a mixture of triumph and apprehension. The day's engagements had been successful, yet the unpredictability of human behavior loomed like a shadow over his plans. He reviewed the day's footage, analyzing every glance, gesture, and word. Every interaction had been cataloged, annotated, and cross-referenced with previous observations. Yet the very act of reviewing brought a subtle, nagging awareness. He was not merely observing a social experiment, but trespassing into lives that existed independently of his design. Despite this, Leonard could not halt his obsession. He prepared a series of letters and small gifts for the following days, each crafted to reinforce the bonds that had begun to form. The brown paper packages would continue to appear, sketches would be delivered with precise timing, and small, coincidental meetings would be orchestrated with increasing sophistication. Every element was designed to cultivate trust, intimacy, and reliance, while simultaneously strengthening Leonard's own sense of purpose and control. As midnight approached, the city's streets were silent once more. Leonard sat in his apartment reviewing notes and footage, the glow of the desk lamp casting sharp angles across his face. He considered the evolving relationships, the small moments of authenticity that had emerged despite, or perhaps because of, his orchestration. Friendship, in its purest, most organic form, might never be fully engineered, but Leonard believed he had come closer than anyone could imagine. And yet, the operation had already begun to spiral beyond his control. The genuine warmth in Mrs. Holloway's smile, the uncalculated spontaneity in Mark's gestures, these were elements Leonard could not predict, variables that defied even his meticulous planning. The very human capacity for improvisation and emotional authenticity was encroaching upon his carefully constructed narrative, threatening to destabilize the operation he had so painstakingly designed. Still, Leonard felt no fear, only anticipation. Tomorrow would bring Phase 3, the intervention phase, where connections would be tested, loyalties measured, and true intentions revealed. He could not predict the outcome, and perhaps that was the point. The unpredictability was an essential element, a final challenge in the orchestration of human behavior. Leonard's obsession with connection, control, and influence would be put to the ultimate test. He closed the notebook, carefully tucking it away on a high shelf where it could be retrieved without disrupting the meticulous order of his apartment. Leonard Pike leaned back in his chair, listening to the quiet hum of the city and the faint drip of condensation from the rain gutters. Operation Friendship was far from complete, yet it had already achieved its first victories. Bonds had been formed, interactions guided, and trust cultivated, though the authenticity of that trust remained uncertain. With a deliberate exhale, Leonard whispered into the darkened room, "Tomorrow, the operation will reach its apex. Tomorrow, true friendship, or its illusion, will be revealed." And with that, he allowed himself a brief, almost imperceptible smile, the satisfaction of a mind in full motion, a conductor orchestrating a symphony of human connection in a city that slept unaware beneath his watchful gaze. The next morning, the sun struggled to penetrate the thick gray haze that lingered over Greystone, casting the city in muted tones of silver and ash. Leonard Pike rose with a sense of purpose, his mind already dissecting the previous day's encounters. Phase 3, Intervention, would begin tonight, and he spent the morning preparing subtle scenarios to push Mrs. Holloway and Mark into moments that would test their newly formed bonds. This was no longer mere observation. The operation demanded action, the kind that forced choice, trust, and vulnerability. Leonard started with surveillance. He moved silently through his apartment, adjusting the camera in the hallway to capture multiple angles without detection. His fingers lingered over the lenses, imagining how each subtle tilt or change in perspective would allow him to record the tiniest gesture, the faintest glance, the shift in body language that would reveal genuine sentiment. Every detail mattered. Every twitch, every pause, every micro-expression was data in his ever-expanding dossier. Breakfast was skipped. Leonard's hunger had been replaced by anticipation. He reviewed notes, diagrams, and sketches on the table before him. He had planned an encounter at the corner bakery, a place both Mrs. Holloway and Mark visited out of habit. The bakery's narrow layout, with a counter running the length of one wall and shelves of bread and pastries lining the other, offered the perfect controlled environment for observation and subtle influence. Leonard had orchestrated it so that both of his targets would arrive at the same time, separated only by the length of the shop. At precisely 10:15 a.m., Leonard observed from his position across the street. Mrs. Holloway entered first, her umbrella dripping water onto the tiled floor. She approached the counter with measured steps, placing her order in a voice soft yet firm. Leonard noted the way her fingers trembled slightly as she handed over coins, a nervous tic he had catalogued for weeks. Moments later, Mark arrived, bag slung over his shoulder, eyes scanning the shelves in a mixture of curiosity and distraction. Their awareness of each other's presence was subtle at first, marked by glances that lasted a fraction of a second too long to be coincidence. Leonard's pulse quickened. The operation was advancing exactly as planned. He had introduced an obstacle, a minor mishap with a spilled sugar container, that forced both Mrs. Holloway and Mark to bend down simultaneously to clean it. Their hands brushed, and Leonard watched closely, noting the slight recoil, the surprise, and then the tentative smile each offered. It was a minor interaction, yet it carried the weight of intimacy, and Leonard catalogued every nuance, every micro-response. This was the kind of moment that forged connection, the delicate balance of surprise, proximity, and shared effort. The day unfolded with a series of orchestrated yet seemingly accidental encounters. Leonard guided each interaction with meticulous care, nudging both subjects toward mutual dependence without their conscious realization. At the local park, he arranged a chance meeting by leaving a scarf, deliberately dropped by him, entwined among the benches where they would inevitably pass. Mrs. Holloway's curiosity prompted her to pick it up, only to discover Mark examining the same object moments later. Their eyes met, and an unspoken acknowledgement passed between them, an invisible bridge built upon Leonard's orchestration. In the evening, Leonard prepared for the central engagement of the day. He had rented a small, private room in a community center, claiming it was a workshop for local residents interested in art and gardening. Invitations, written with careful neutrality, were delivered anonymously. Both Mrs. Holloway and Mark were expected to attend, unaware of each other's presence or Leonard's role. The workshop was designed to encourage collaboration and dialogue, a controlled environment in which bonds could be tested under the guise of shared activity. As the appointed hour approached, Leonard positioned himself discreetly near the entrance, camera hidden beneath his jacket. He watched as Mrs. Holloway arrived first, her gait hesitant but curious. She carried a wicker basket filled with freshly sprouted plants, a symbol of her care and patience. Leonard smiled, noting the meticulous way she arranged each plant on a long table, aligning them with geometric precision. Mark arrived a few minutes later, his satchel replaced by a smaller canvas bag, stuffed with sketches and pencil sets. He paused briefly at the door, scanning the room, and then proceeded to set up at a station adjacent to Mrs. Holloway. Leonard's heart raced as the first interactions unfolded. The workshop facilitator, a young woman Leonard had hired for the occasion, introduced a collaborative exercise in which participants were instructed to design a miniature garden using provided materials. Mrs. Holloway and Mark were naturally paired, their proximity unavoidable, their cooperation required. Leonard observed their hands moving over soil, pebbles, and miniature figurines, their dialogue at first polite and cautious, then gradually more animated, laughter mingling with suggestions. It was an orchestrated intimacy, a delicate dance of guidance and spontaneity. Yet Leonard noticed something unexpected, a spark of genuine connection, a nuance he could not have predicted or controlled. Mark hesitated before placing a small figurine in the garden, glancing at Mrs. Holloway for approval. She, in turn, nodded encouragingly, her smile warm and uncalculated. Their collaboration, though influenced by Leonard's planning, had taken on its own rhythm, guided as much by instinct as by orchestration. Leonard felt a mixture of pride and unease. The operation had achieved its objective. A bond was forming, real and fragile, yet he realized he was no longer fully in control. The evening progressed, the workshop growing more dynamic. Participants shared ideas, exchanged small confidences, and laughed over minor mistakes. Leonard documented every detail, aware that the interplay of personalities was evolving in unpredictable ways. Mrs. Holloway confided a story from her past, about a childhood garden and the friends she had lost over the years. Mark responded with a tale of artistic struggle, moments of doubt, and fleeting triumphs. Leonard watched the subtle exchange of empathy, noting each flicker of emotion, each hesitation and affirmation. It was a social experiment that had exceeded even his meticulous expectations. By the end of the session, Leonard orchestrated a final interaction. The participants were instructed to pair off for a closing reflection exercise, discussing what they had learned about collaboration and friendship. Mrs. Holloway and Mark were naturally positioned together. Leonard observed as they spoke in low tones, their heads inclined slightly toward each other, hands brushing occasionally over shared tools. The ease of their dialogue contrasted with the calculated steps Leonard had designed, signaling that the bond had begun to operate independently of his manipulations. As the night deepened, Leonard returned to his apartment, analyzing the day's footage and notes with a mixture of exhilaration and apprehension. Operation Friendship had reached a crucial juncture. The bonds he had engineered were now real, yet no longer entirely within his control. The unpredictability of human emotion had begun to assert itself, challenging the authority of his orchestration. He catalogued each interaction, each glance, each inflection, knowing that tomorrow would demand an even higher level of precision to guide the next phase of intervention. In the quiet of his apartment, Leonard considered the ethical boundaries of his endeavor. Was this friendship, or merely the illusion of it? Could genuine trust emerge from carefully constructed encounters, or was he merely puppeteering human behavior for his own sense of fulfillment? These questions hovered like shadows, but Leonard dismissed them with a wave of resolve. The operation was too far advanced to falter now. He had invested weeks of meticulous planning, observation, and orchestration, and he would see it through to completion. The night's silence was broken only by the faint hum of the city outside, a reminder of the world beyond Leonard's meticulous control. He reviewed the plans for the next day, additional interactions designed to deepen reliance, to test trust, and to reinforce the sense of camaraderie that had begun to form. Leonard's mind was a constant whirl of anticipation, strategy, and careful calculation. Every step was deliberate, every gesture considered, every outcome imagined in exhaustive detail. And yet, in the midst of his triumph, a quiet, almost imperceptible fear began to take root. He realized that the operation, though meticulously planned, had entered a territory he could not entirely predict. Mrs. Holloway's laughter, Mark's spontaneous ideas, the subtle, unspoken understanding that had begun to form between them, all of these were variables beyond his design. The line between influence and authentic connection had blurred, and Leonard found himself at the edge of a psychological precipice, uncertain whether the bonds he had orchestrated would survive the weight of reality. Still, anticipation outweighed doubt. Leonard Pike, ever methodical, ever calculating, prepared for the coming day with renewed focus. Phase 3 would test the limits of friendship, loyalty, and human intuition. It was a delicate experiment, a social alchemy that balanced on the knife edge of control and chaos. Leonard's obsession, his desire for connection, his unyielding drive to engineer the perfect friendship, all of it would culminate in moments yet unseen, decisions yet unmade, and revelations yet undiscovered. As midnight approached, Leonard sat back in his chair, reviewing the day's notes one last time. His apartment, cluttered with sketches, letters, and surveillance footage, felt simultaneously like a sanctuary and a laboratory. Outside, Greystone slept, unaware of the intricate social experiment unfolding above its dampened streets. Leonard whispered to himself, a mantra of resolve and anticipation. Tomorrow, the operation will reach its most delicate phase. Every bond will be tested. Every secret will be revealed. And friendship, real or manufactured, will stand on trial. He turned off the desk lamp, the glow fading to darkness, leaving only the shadows and the faint hum of the city. Operation Friendship was no longer a mere plan. It was a living organism, unpredictable yet beautiful, fragile yet compelling. Leonard Pike, the quiet orchestrator, closed his eyes, ready for the next chapter in a symphony of human connection, manipulation, and obsession that he had only begun to compose. The dawn was thin and gray, a tentative veil over the city that did little to illuminate the damp streets below. Leonard Pike was already awake, sitting at his desk with the notebook open before him, reviewing the previous night's footage. Phase 3 of Operation Friendship had begun, and today he intended to escalate, to push the boundaries of trust and camaraderie he had meticulously cultivated. The subtle gestures, the orchestrated coincidences, the gentle manipulations, all of it had brought his two targets closer, but Leonard knew that true connection required confrontation, the test of choice under pressure. He reviewed the notes, outlining scenarios that would challenge Mrs. Holloway and Mark to reveal their vulnerabilities, their instincts, and their capacity for loyalty. The key, Leonard understood, was to engineer circumstances that demanded reliance on each other without overt interference. It was a careful balance. Too forceful, and the operation would collapse. Too subtle, and the bonds would stagnate. Each step, each gesture, was a deliberate thread in a web designed to ensnare their trust while remaining invisible. Leonard's morning began with an inconspicuous visit to the neighborhood grocery. He positioned himself near the checkout, ostensibly browsing, but his gaze was trained on the entrances and aisles, anticipating the precise arrival times of both Mrs. Holloway and Mark. He had planted small obstacles along their paths, items accidentally dropped, narrow spaces that required shared navigation, slight scheduling conflicts that forced simultaneous presence. Each element was a carefully placed chess piece, designed to create the illusion of randomness while advancing his plan. The first encounter occurred near the bread aisle. Leonard had left a small stack of flour bags precariously balanced, ready to topple. As Mrs. Holloway rounded the corner, a bag slipped, and Mark, entering the aisle moments later, caught it with a hurried reflex. Their hands brushed as they adjusted the bag together, and Leonard observed the subtle interplay of surprise, gratitude, and curiosity. It was a minor event, yet it carried enormous potential, a shared experience, a moment of reliance, an opportunity for vulnerability. By mid-morning, Leonard guided them toward a nearby park under the guise of coincidence. The fog had lifted slightly, revealing the skeletal outlines of leafless trees and the slick, reflective surface of the paved paths. He had arranged a scavenger-style exercise using a small flyer left anonymously at each door. Discover the hidden paths of Greystone. An adventure awaits for those who seek friendship. Both Mrs. Holloway and Mark had accepted the invitation independently, unaware of the other's participation. Leonard tracked their movements with precise timing, noting how each navigated the clues, each pause and decision recorded in his expanding database of behavior. Their encounter at the park unfolded as Leonard predicted. A minor obstacle, a locked gate along the main path, forced collaboration. Mrs. Holloway hesitated, unsure of how to proceed, while Mark offered a practical solution, a simple lever motion he had observed in previous weeks. Leonard watched their coordinated effort, cataloging gestures, expressions, and micro-reactions. The bond, though subtle, was strengthening, the shared reliance creating an intangible tether that pulled them closer together. Leonard felt a thrill of satisfaction. His careful orchestration was working, yet he remained vigilant. Human spontaneity, unpredictable as it was, could still disrupt the operation. By afternoon, Leonard had arranged for a controlled social setting, a small community center workshop on creative writing advertised as open to local residents. He had strategically ensured both Mrs. Holloway and Mark would attend, positioning them at adjacent tables. The exercises were designed to promote dialogue, to encourage disclosure of personal narratives, yet without overtly manipulating the content. Leonard observed from the rear, camera discreetly hidden, notebook open, documenting each gesture, each glance, each unspoken nuance. During the workshop, Leonard noted an unexpected development, an organic moment of shared amusement between Mrs. Holloway and Mark. They laughed at a minor misunderstanding, a slip of the pen that disrupted a line of poetry. The sound was unplanned, genuine, and Leonard found himself simultaneously exhilarated and unnerved. The unpredictability of authentic human interaction was asserting itself, a variable he had anticipated but could not fully control. The bond was evolving beyond his orchestration, and with that evolution came both opportunity and risk. As evening approached, Leonard prepared the final engagement for the day, a walk through a narrow alley that ran behind the row of tenement buildings. He had chosen this route carefully, anticipating the tactile engagement it would necessitate, shared navigation, small obstacles, and the potential for spontaneous dialogue. Mrs. Holloway and Mark were directed to meet there through innocuous flyers, carefully timed. Leonard followed discreetly from a distance, camera hidden in the folds of his jacket, capturing every nuance. The alley was slick with rain runoff, the dim glow of flickering street lamps casting distorted shadows along the walls. Mrs. Holloway moved first, her umbrella clutched tightly, hesitating at each puddle. Mark followed, instinctively offering assistance, a gesture that Leonard had engineered but which now felt authentic, almost instinctively kind. Their hands brushed several times, once intentionally to steady balance, and Leonard catalogued each reaction. The slight flinch, the rapid intake of breath, the warmth that lingered in their eyes. It was the culmination of weeks of manipulation, observation, and subtle guidance. The operation had reached its apex for the day. Yet, in the moments of forced intimacy, Leonard recognized a shift he could not entirely control. Mrs. Holloway shared a memory of her youth, a story of lost friends and missed opportunities, while Mark responded with empathy and insight, unprompted by Leonard's designs. Their interaction had transcended the parameters of his orchestration, and for the first time, Leonard sensed that the operation was no longer entirely his own. The unpredictability of genuine human connection was asserting itself, threatening the rigid control he had maintained. Back in his apartment, Leonard meticulously reviewed the day's footage. Every glance, every gesture, every nuance had been recorded, annotated, and analyzed. Yet the footage revealed an unsettling reality. While he had engineered circumstances, the emotional responses were spontaneous, authentic, and increasingly independent. His sense of control, once absolute, was beginning to fracture under the weight of reality. The operation, he realized, had developed its own momentum, its own trajectory. Despite the creeping unease, Leonard's obsession remained undiminished. He prepared for the following day, devising additional scenarios to deepen trust, to test reliance, and to explore the boundaries of connection. He drafted letters, sketches, and small tokens of attention, each designed to reinforce the interpersonal bonds without overt manipulation. His mind, a labyrinth of planning and calculation, continued to churn, anticipating every possible outcome while acknowledging the inherent uncertainty of human emotion. Late at night, Leonard sat alone in his apartment, the shadows stretching long and indistinct under the dim glow of the desk lamp. He reviewed his notes, considering the ethical dimensions of his work, though he dismissed them as irrelevant to the ultimate goal. Friendship, in its purest form, was rare, he told himself. If manipulation was required to cultivate it, then manipulation was justified. The distinction between genuine affection and orchestrated trust blurred, but Leonard cared little. The objective, the connection itself, was paramount. Outside, the city slept, unaware of the social experiment unfolding above the dampened streets. Leonard reflected on the delicate balance he had achieved, the fragile network of interactions that had begun to define Phase 3. He understood that tomorrow would require even greater precision, as the bonds he had orchestrated would be tested by circumstance, choice, and unforeseen variables. The culmination of his efforts, he realized, could result in triumph or failure, and the stakes, though invisible to all others, were profoundly personal. As he prepared for bed, Leonard whispered into the stillness of his apartment, "Tomorrow, the operation will face its final trials. The bonds will be tested, the loyalty measured, and the truth revealed. Friendship, real or fabricated, will confront the ultimate challenge." He lay down with a mind that refused to rest, filled with calculations, observations, and an unyielding desire for connection. The experiment, he knew, had evolved beyond the sum of its parts, taking on a life that was both exhilarating and terrifying. The morning air was sharp with frost, the edges of puddles glinting like shards of glass under the pale sun. Leonard Pike was awake before dawn, his mind already reviewing the previous night's encounters. Phase 3 of Operation Friendship had advanced to a point where subtlety alone was no longer sufficient. He needed tests, scenarios that would challenge trust, provoke vulnerability, and solidify bonds through shared experience. Leonard's apartment was cluttered with notes, sketches, and surveillance footage, each piece a fragment of a larger, invisible architecture. Breakfast was a hurried affair. Black coffee and a single piece of toast, but Leonard hardly tasted it. His attention was on the careful construction of the day's engagements. He had chosen 3 locations: the small grocery on 12th Street, the park behind the tenements, and a narrow alleyway that provided controlled proximity and minimal external interference. Each scenario was designed to compel interaction between Mrs. Holloway and Mark, to test the strength of the tenuous bonds he had orchestrated, and to observe the nuances of emotional response. The first engagement occurred at the grocery. Leonard had planted an obstacle, a stack of cans along a narrow aisle, balanced precariously to topple at the slightest touch. He observed from a distance, hidden behind the display of fruits, as Mrs. Holloway entered, umbrella dripping lightly from the morning frost. She moved with care, approaching the precarious stack of cans, and Mark appeared moments later, seemingly by chance, his satchel slung across one shoulder. Leonard's pulse quickened as the bag of cans shifted, threatening to fall. Mark reacted instinctively, steadying the stack just as Mrs. Holloway reached for it. Their hands met briefly, a brush that sent a jolt of shared surprise through both. Leonard noted every micro-expression, the blink, the quick intake of breath, the subtle warmth in their eyes, and cataloged it meticulously. The interaction, though minor, was a bridge, a delicate thread weaving their lives closer together. Leonard smiled faintly. The operation was unfolding exactly as planned, yet he remained wary of the unpredictable variables that human behavior always introduced. By late morning, Leonard had guided them toward the park under the guise of following a scavenger-like challenge he had arranged. Small slips of paper, left anonymously at their doors, instructed them to search for hidden markers throughout the park. Each clue was timed precisely to orchestrate encounters, forcing proximity and collaboration. Leonard moved quietly along the periphery, hidden beneath the branches of leafless trees, camera concealed in his coat, notebook ready for rapid notation. The first marker required a shared action, moving a fallen branch to reveal the next clue. Mrs. Holloway hesitated, unsure how to lift the branch, while Mark offered assistance, grasping it firmly at one end. Together, they maneuvered the branch, revealing a small envelope with a cryptic note inside. Leonard's meticulous planning had engineered the cooperation, yet he observed with a thrill as genuine camaraderie emerged. Their laughter, subtle and natural, punctuated the moment, affirming the bridge of trust he had spent weeks constructing. Later, Leonard introduced a controlled challenge, a narrow plank over a shallow drainage ditch that required careful crossing. Both participants approached it cautiously, yet the necessity of sharing the narrow space forced physical proximity and subtle negotiation. Leonard noted the way Mrs. Holloway instinctively reached for Mark's arm for balance, the way Mark responded with a careful, protective gesture. These interactions were the crux of Phase 3, orchestrated pressure that elicited trust and dependence. The line between manipulation and authentic connection was blurred, yet Leonard believed he had achieved the ideal balance. As afternoon approached, Leonard prepared for the final engagement of the day, a walk through the narrow alley behind the tenement row. He had previously conducted reconnaissance, noting the subtle patterns of light and shadow cast by flickering street lamps and the damp reflections on the slick pavement. The alley provided controlled conditions, limited space, minimal distractions, and the perfect opportunity for close interaction. Leonard followed discreetly, camera concealed and notebook open, ready to record every gesture, glance, and micro-expression. Mrs. Holloway arrived first, moving cautiously along the damp pavement, umbrella tucked under one arm. Mark followed moments later, and Leonard watched as the scenario unfolded. He had left small obstacles, a loose wooden crate, a puddle strategically positioned, to force cooperation. The first obstacle required both to lift the crate together, negotiating the weight and angle while maintaining balance on the slick surface. Their hands met repeatedly, brushing, gripping, adjusting, each movement observed with keen interest by Leonard. It was a minor physical test, yet in his mind it represented a psychological one as well, a tangible measure of reliance and trust. During the walk, Leonard orchestrated moments of conversation, placing objects and cues along the alleyway to encourage disclosure. A stray photograph, carefully planted on a crate, prompted Mrs. Holloway to recall a memory of her childhood, a long-forgotten birthday party where her friends had abandoned her. Mark responded with empathy, sharing his own experience of isolation and rejection. Leonard noted the tone, the cadence, the subtle shifts in posture, every element a data point in the expanding framework of his operation. Yet even as the interactions progressed according to plan, Leonard noticed the emergence of unpredictability, the authentic spark of connection that could not be manufactured. Mrs. Holloway's laughter, spontaneous and unprompted, carried warmth beyond what he had scripted. Mark's gestures of reassurance, uncalculated and instinctive, indicated emotional authenticity. Leonard realized, with a mixture of exhilaration and unease, that the operation had evolved beyond mere orchestration. The bonds were real, yet outside the total control he had once wielded with such precision. Returning to his apartment late that evening, Leonard reviewed the footage with obsessive attention. Every micro-expression, every subtle gesture, every pause in conversation was catalogued, analyzed, and cross-referenced with previous days. The operation, he understood, had entered a critical phase. The variables of genuine human response were asserting themselves, introducing elements of unpredictability that threatened his meticulous plan. And yet, these same variables were the very essence of the success he sought. True connection, after all, could not exist without spontaneity. Leonard prepared letters and small tokens for the next day, each carefully designed to reinforce bonds without appearing contrived. A packet of rare flower seeds for Mrs. Holloway, a new sketch for Mark, each gesture a continuation of the subtle manipulation that had become the lifeblood of Operation Friendship. He arranged them with precise timing in mind, leaving no detail to chance. The balance between control and authentic human response would define the success of the operation, and Leonard's mind worked tirelessly to anticipate every possible outcome. Late at night, the apartment was silent except for the hum of the city below. Leonard sat back, notebook in hand, reflecting on the day's developments. The operations had tested trust, provoked cooperation, and reinforced dependence, yet they had also revealed the unpredictable essence of genuine connection. He realized, with a mixture of satisfaction and apprehension, that Operation Friendship had grown beyond a mere experiment. It had become a living entity, shaped as much by the participants as by his own meticulous designs. As he prepared for sleep, Leonard whispered to himself a mantra of determination and anticipation. Tomorrow, the operation will push further. Trust will be tested, loyalties will be measured, and the ultimate nature of friendship will be revealed. He lay awake for hours, imagining the interactions, recalculating the timings, adjusting the scenarios in his mind, fully consumed by the obsessive orchestration of human connection. The lines between friendship, manipulation, and genuine emotion had blurred, yet Leonard embraced the uncertainty with a thrill that bordered on mania. The city outside remained oblivious to the subtle drama unfolding within its alleys, parks, and small cafes. Leonard Pike, alone in his apartment, felt the full weight of his obsession. The participants were moving beyond the bounds of his script, yet their responses, the laughter, the empathy, the uncalculated gestures, were precisely the proof he sought. The operation was alive, unpredictable, and profoundly human, and Leonard, for all his meticulous control, knew that he was no longer the sole architect. Phase 3 had reached its apex, yet the experiment was far from over. Tomorrow would demand further precision, increased subtlety, and a careful management of unpredictability. Leonard's mind raced with possibilities, calculating interactions, potential conflicts, and the delicate interplay of emotional response. Every word, gesture, and glance would carry weight, influencing the fragile bonds he had cultivated. The stakes, though invisible to all others, were immense. As midnight approached, Leonard reviewed his notes one final time. The meticulous records of gestures, expressions, and interactions formed a tapestry of human behavior, a map of trust, reliance, and vulnerability. Yet within this map, anomalies appeared, moments of genuine connection that defied his control. Leonard recognized that the success of Operation Friendship depended not solely on orchestration, but on the emergence of authentic human response within the boundaries he had carefully constructed. He turned off the desk lamp, leaving the apartment cloaked in shadow. Outside, the city slept, unaware of the intricate orchestration of human interaction above its streets. Leonard Pike, the quiet manipulator, sat in darkness, consumed by anticipation and obsession, ready for the next chapter of Operation Friendship, where control and spontaneity would collide, and the fragile bonds of engineered friendship would be tested in ways only time could reveal. The morning arrived with an unusual chill, the kind that made the breath visible in short, misted puffs, even indoors. Leonard Pike was already awake, sitting rigidly at his desk, notebook open, pen poised. Phase 3 of Operation Friendship had reached a crucial inflection point. Yesterday's orchestrated encounters had yielded tangible trust and cooperation, yet the unpredictability of genuine emotion lingered like a shadow over his meticulous designs. Today, Leonard resolved, the operation would confront that unpredictability directly. Breakfast was minimal, a cup of black coffee and a slice of dry toast, yet Leonard's mind had no room for taste or indulgence. Every thought was consumed with strategy, observation, and contingency planning. He mapped out the day in exhaustive detail, noting the precise windows of arrival, the likely sequences of interactions, and the subtle psychological pressures he intended to apply. Each moment, each gesture, each phrase was a calculated tool, yet Leonard recognized that the most profound outcomes often arose from unplanned spontaneity. He embraced that duality, balancing control with the opportunity for unpredictability to emerge. The first orchestrated encounter occurred at a small cafe along Greystone's main avenue. Leonard had previously arranged for Mrs. Holloway and Mark to arrive within minutes of each other, a timing that maximized the chance of spontaneous dialogue. He stationed himself at a nearby table, a book open before him, but eyes trained meticulously on the entrance. The cafe was modest, wooden tables, warm light from amber-tinted lamps, and the faint aroma of roasted coffee beans mingling with pastry. It was unremarkable, yet perfect for his designs. Mrs. Holloway entered first, umbrella dripping lightly on the floor, a hood shielding her gray hair. She moved with her usual careful precision, scanning the room before settling near the counter. Leonard noted the slight tremor in her hands as she exchanged coins, cataloging the subtle gestures that hinted at underlying nerves and the faint excitement of social engagement. Moments later, Mark arrived, bag slung casually over his shoulder, eyes flicking across the cafe as if casually browsing. Their proximity prompted a reaction, a slight pause, a shared glance, an unspoken acknowledgement. Leonard's pulse quickened. The orchestrated timing was working, yet the authenticity of their response introduced variables he could not fully predict. A minor incident occurred near the pastry display. A tray of croissants tilted precariously, threatening to spill onto the floor. Leonard observed as Mark instinctively steadied the tray while Mrs. Holloway reached to adjust it as well. Their hands met briefly, and a fleeting warmth passed between them. Leonard catalogued every nuance, the blink, the slight shift of weight, the soft intake of breath. It was a trivial moment, yet for Leonard it was a carefully crafted test of cooperation, trust, and responsiveness. The operation was alive, responsive, and unpredictable all at once. By late morning, Leonard had guided them toward a park nearby, ostensibly for a communal art project. Flyers, placed anonymously at their doors, invited them to participate in a scavenger art walk, a series of creative exercises designed to provoke dialogue and subtle collaboration. Leonard followed discreetly, camera concealed, notebook open, prepared to record every microgesture, glance, and tone of voice. The fog had lifted slightly, leaving the air crisp and biting, the skeletal trees casting long skeletal shadows over the damp paths. The first activity required a shared task, painting miniature landscapes on small canvases, then arranging them to form a collective mural. Leonard observed as Mrs. Holloway and Mark instinctively gravitated toward each other, their hands brushing over paintbrushes, their voices harmonizing in laughter and suggestion. Each stroke, each decision, each compromise was a test of mutual respect and trust. Leonard's satisfaction was tempered by the realization that their emerging bond was evolving independently of his meticulous design. Genuine connection was asserting itself within the framework he had constructed, creating a dynamic both exhilarating and unnerving. An unexpected development occurred when a sudden gust of wind threatened to scatter the canvases. Leonard watched as Mark lunged instinctively to secure one, while Mrs. Holloway adjusted another. Their coordinated action, unprompted and spontaneous, reinforced the sense of shared reliance. Leonard catalogued the moment carefully, noting not only the actions themselves, but the subtle emotional cues, the rapid heartbeat, the quickened breathing, the warmth that lingered in their eyes. It was evidence that his operation had transcended simple manipulation. The seeds of authentic friendship had begun to take root. By mid-afternoon, Leonard orchestrated a small detour, a narrow alleyway littered with crates and puddles, chosen for its necessity of cooperation. The alley forced close proximity and minor physical coordination, the ideal environment for gauging trust and unspoken communication. Leonard followed at a distance, camera concealed, watching as Mrs. Holloway navigated the puddles with careful steps while Mark instinctively offered assistance. Their hands met repeatedly, gestures of both practicality and subtle intimacy. Leonard noted the delicate interplay of autonomy and reliance, cataloging every gesture and micro-expression with obsessive care. The final engagement of the day was designed as the ultimate test, a moment requiring moral judgment and trust. Leonard had prepared 2 sealed envelopes, each containing instructions for a personal task, one requiring Mrs. Holloway to rely on Mark for guidance, the other asking Mark to respond with honesty and openness. The envelopes were planted along the alleyway, discovered sequentially in a manner that seemed entirely accidental. Leonard watched as they read the contents, their expressions shifting from curiosity to contemplation. Decisions had to be made, choices revealing character and loyalty, yet framed within an apparently neutral environment. Mrs. Holloway approached Mark with a tentative question, seeking guidance in completing her task. Mark responded with a blend of humor and empathy, offering practical advice while allowing her autonomy. Leonard catalogued every inflection, every pause, every subtle smile. The delicate balance between control and spontaneity had been maintained, yet the unpredictability of authentic response introduced variables he could not fully predict. The operation was approaching its most fragile, most revealing stage. As the evening settled, Leonard returned to his apartment, reviewing the day's footage with meticulous attention. The operation had succeeded in producing cooperation, trust, and shared moments of vulnerability. Yet there were moments, small and fleeting, that he could not fully control. The glance that lingered too long, the laughter that bubbled spontaneously, the gentle touch that was unplanned. Leonard recognized these as both triumph and threat, evidence that his orchestration was effective, yet insufficient to dominate human unpredictability entirely. He prepared letters and small tokens for the following day, a carefully chosen seed packet for Mrs. Holloway, a new sketch for Mark, each accompanied by a brief note crafted to reinforce trust and connection. Leonard's mind raced with contingencies, imagining every possible reaction, every subtle shift in behavior, every unintended outcome. Phase 3 was far from complete. The bonds he had cultivated needed further reinforcement and careful testing. Late at night, Leonard sat in the dim glow of his desk lamp, reflecting on the day's events. The operation had entered a stage where the lines between manipulation and genuine connection were indistinguishable. Yet, for Leonard, this ambiguity was not a source of fear, but of fascination. He had engineered scenarios that compelled reliance and fostered intimacy, yet within those parameters, authentic human emotion had begun to emerge. The operation was alive, unpredictable, and profoundly human. As midnight approached, Leonard whispered to himself, "Tomorrow, the test will become absolute. Every bond, every gesture, every choice will reveal the truth of this friendship, and the final measure of loyalty and trust will be taken." He closed his notebook, arranged his letters and gifts, and allowed himself a brief rest, knowing that the next day would demand heightened vigilance, subtlety, and observation. Outside, the city slept, unaware of the intricate choreography unfolding above its streets. Leonard Pike, the quiet architect of human connection, sat alone in the shadows of his apartment, consumed by anticipation and obsession, fully aware that the bonds he had carefully engineered were now partially beyond his control. Operation Friendship was no longer merely an experiment. It had become a living entity, shaped by both manipulation and genuine human response, fragile yet compelling, delicate yet unstoppable. The following morning, the city awoke under a low-hanging mist, streets slick with the remnants of overnight rain. Leonard Pike was already at his desk reviewing the footage from the previous day with meticulous precision. The operation had reached a stage where subtle orchestration alone was no longer sufficient. Today would demand tests of judgment, trust, and emotional honesty, scenarios designed to push Mrs. Holloway and Mark beyond the familiar routines he had meticulously constructed. Leonard's mind was a matrix of timing, opportunity, and prediction, each variable plotted and recalibrated with obsessive care. Breakfast was minimal, barely a sip of coffee and a half slice of bread, yet Leonard's attention was elsewhere. His thoughts raced through sequences, contingencies, and possible responses. He considered every previous interaction, the accidental brush of hands at the bakery, the coordinated lifting of crates in the alley, the spontaneous laughter over paint-streaked canvases, and calculated how each could be subtly amplified, challenged, or redirected. Phase 3 was reaching a crescendo, and Leonard's anticipation was both exhilarating and unnerving. The first orchestrated encounter occurred at a narrow antique shop on Main Street, chosen for its quiet atmosphere and the close quarters that necessitated shared negotiation of space. Leonard had previously ensured that both Mrs. Holloway and Mark would visit the shop independently, yet arrive within minutes of each other. The shop's wooden shelves were crowded with curiosities, glass figurines, faded photographs, and tarnished trinkets. The subtle aroma of varnish and aged wood filled the air, providing a sensory backdrop for interaction. Mrs. Holloway entered first, hands lightly brushing the edges of shelves, her eyes scanning the objects with a combination of curiosity and gentle apprehension. Leonard catalogued the precise angle of her posture, the tilt of her head, the soft exhalations of breath that suggested contemplation and anticipation. Moments later, Mark appeared, bag slung casually over one shoulder, eyes moving with a mix of curiosity and mild amusement. Leonard observed as their awareness of each other's presence manifested in fleeting glances and subtle body shifts, micro-responses that spoke volumes about the evolving bond he had so carefully nurtured. A minor accident was soon introduced, a small stack of old books, intentionally destabilized, threatening to topple. Mark instinctively reached to steady them, while Mrs. Holloway reacted simultaneously. Their hands met briefly, and a moment of shared surprise passed between them. Leonard catalogued the flicker of eye contact, the quick intake of breath, and the softening of expressions. The scenario, though simple, served as a test of mutual awareness and subtle coordination, reinforcing the framework of reliance he had been cultivating for weeks. By mid-morning, Leonard guided them toward the park for an additional orchestrated encounter, this time with an exercise in cooperative problem-solving. Flyers, left anonymously at their respective doors, invited both participants to a puzzle hunt throughout the park, designed to encourage dialogue, negotiation, and shared decision-making. Leonard observed from a concealed position among the bare trees, camera hidden, notebook ready to record micro-expressions, gestures, and tonal shifts. The fog had lifted, leaving the air crisp and the damp paths reflective beneath the soft light of the rising sun. The first task required them to arrange a series of stones to form a pattern, the solution dependent on cooperative coordination. Leonard watched as Mrs. Holloway hesitated, unsure of placement, while Mark offered gentle guidance. Their hands brushed repeatedly over the stones, adjustments negotiated without overt discussion. Laughter emerged spontaneously as one stone teetered precariously, forcing a coordinated adjustment. Leonard's cataloging of every microgesture and subtle emotional response reflected his obsessive attention to detail. The operation, though designed, now contained emergent elements of authentic human interaction that were beyond his control. An unexpected development occurred when Mrs. Holloway, noticing a small bird perched nearby, paused to feed it a crumb. Mark joined her instinctively, sharing the gesture. Leonard noted the unprompted tenderness, the uncalculated shared moment of empathy, and cataloged it meticulously. The operation had achieved its designed objectives: cooperation, trust, and shared experience. Yet the unpredictability of authentic human emotion had begun to introduce elements that he could not entirely predict or manipulate. By afternoon, Leonard orchestrated a controlled moral test. He had prepared 2 envelopes, each containing instructions for tasks designed to provoke ethical judgment and interdependence. Mrs. Holloway's envelope required her to seek Mark's advice before completing a small challenge, while Mark's envelope asked him to respond with honesty and sensitivity. The envelopes were placed strategically along a path in the park, discovered sequentially, maintaining the illusion of chance. Leonard observed as the participants read the instructions, expressions shifting from curiosity to contemplation. Decisions were required, revealing both character and the developing trust between them. Mrs. Holloway approached Mark cautiously, seeking guidance. He responded with thoughtful insight, balancing practical instruction with respect for her autonomy. Their dialogue was careful yet fluid, spontaneous yet guided by the subtle architecture Leonard had constructed. Every gesture, every pause, every tone was recorded, cataloged, and analyzed. Leonard recognized that the operation had entered a delicate phase. The participants' responses were authentic, yet heavily influenced by his prior orchestration. The line between manipulation and genuine connection had become nearly imperceptible. Returning to his apartment in the late evening, Leonard reviewed the day's footage with the same obsessive precision that had defined his work from the outset. He noted successes, anomalies, and the emergent patterns of human behavior. The operation was thriving, yet the unpredictability of authentic interaction loomed as both opportunity and threat. The participants were beginning to assert their own agency within the framework he had designed, creating a dynamic that was simultaneously exhilarating and unsettling. Leonard prepared for the following day, designing a series of subtle interventions aimed at deepening trust and testing loyalty. Small gestures, letters, tokens, sketches were carefully crafted to reinforce the bonds of cooperation while maintaining the illusion of independence. Every detail, from the timing of arrival to the placement of objects, was calculated with obsessive care. Leonard understood that Phase 3 would soon reach its apex, and the stakes, though invisible to all others, were immensely personal. Late at night, Leonard sat alone, notebook in hand, reflecting on the emerging complexity of the operation. The social experiment had evolved beyond simple orchestration. It had become a living entity, shaped by both design and the unpredictable emergence of authentic human behavior. Leonard felt a mixture of pride, obsession, and a creeping unease. The bonds he had cultivated were real, yet increasingly independent of his control. The operation was no longer entirely his to command. He whispered into the stillness of his apartment, "Tomorrow, every bond will be tested, every trust measured. Every choice will reveal the true nature of this friendship." Leonard arranged the letters, gifts, and tokens with careful precision, a final layer of preparation before the next day's orchestrated challenges. His anticipation was electric, bordering on obsession, and he lay awake for hours imagining every possible interaction, every potential response, every subtle gesture that might reveal loyalty, empathy, or betrayal. Outside, Greystone slumbered, unaware of the intricate social choreography unfolding above its streets. Leonard Pike, alone in the shadows of his apartment, felt the full weight of his obsession. The participants were moving beyond the bounds of his design, yet their spontaneous interactions, the laughter, the empathy, the unprompted gestures of connection, were precisely the evidence he sought. Operation Friendship had evolved into a living, unpredictable organism, fragile yet compelling, delicate yet unstoppable. Phase 3 was approaching its climax. Leonard knew that the next day would test the bonds he had engineered to their limits, forcing Mrs. Holloway and Mark into moments of choice, trust, and revelation. Every word, gesture, and glance would carry immense weight, shaping the trajectory of relationships that had emerged from weeks of careful orchestration. Leonard's mind, ever restless, raced with contingencies, scenarios, and potential outcomes. Failure was unthinkable. Yet he understood, as always, that human behavior could not be fully predicted. As midnight approached, Leonard reviewed his plans one last time. Every micro-interaction had been accounted for, every possible deviation considered. The operation, he knew, was no longer merely a test of skill or patience. It was a confrontation with the unpredictable, a challenge to the limits of human trust, and an exploration of the fragility and resilience of connection. Outside, the city slept, oblivious to the delicate web of orchestrated encounters, ethical dilemmas, and emergent human bonds that Leonard had crafted with obsessive precision. Leonard turned off the desk lamp, leaving the apartment cloaked in shadow. He lay awake in the quiet, anticipating the trials of the next day. Phase 3 of Operation Friendship had become more than an experiment. It had become an intricate, living symphony of human behavior, manipulation, and authentic emotion. Leonard Pike, the silent orchestrator, was poised at the edge of revelation, ready to observe the final unfolding of bonds that were as fragile as they were compelling. The morning arrived heavy with fog, thick and damp, curling along the pavements and clinging to the skeletal trees of Greystone Park. Leonard Pike was awake long before dawn, notebook open, pen poised, and mind racing with calculations, contingencies, and probabilities. Phase 3 had advanced into a critical stage. The interactions of Mrs. Holloway and Mark were no longer merely orchestrated. They were beginning to evolve organically, unpredictably, carrying an authenticity that both thrilled and unnerved Leonard. He needed today's engagements to test the resilience of the bonds he had nurtured, to force decisions that would reveal loyalty, vulnerability, and trust. Breakfast was mechanical. Black coffee and a thin slice of toast, neither tasting nor satisfying. Leonard's focus was entirely consumed with the planning and anticipation of the day's encounters. He mapped out sequences, predicted behaviors, and rehearsed contingencies, aware that even minor deviations could alter the trajectory of Operation Friendship. Every glance, gesture, or word had potential significance. Every variable required observation. Leonard's obsession was absolute. The first encounter was set at a small bookshop tucked into a narrow street off Main Avenue. Leonard had carefully ensured that both Mrs. Holloway and Mark would arrive within minutes of each other, creating a controlled scenario for subtle social interaction. The shop was cramped and aromatic with aged paper, its shelves crowded with leather-bound tomes and dusty volumes. Leonard positioned himself near the rear, ostensibly browsing, yet eyes trained meticulously on the entrance and every movement within. Mrs. Holloway entered first, her umbrella dripping lightly, hood drawn over her gray hair. She moved cautiously along the aisles, her fingers brushing over the spines of books, eyes scanning titles with quiet curiosity. Leonard catalogued her posture, the slight tilt of her head, the soft exhalations that indicated contemplation and alertness. Moments later, Mark entered, bag slung casually over one shoulder, his gaze sweeping the shelves with a mix of curiosity and amusement. The brief awareness of each other's presence sparked subtle reactions, fleeting glances, minor shifts in posture, a softening in the rigidity of body language. Leonard noted everything, his pulse quickening at the precision of timing and the emergent authenticity of response. A minor obstacle, carefully engineered, soon presented itself. A stack of books on a lower shelf, teetering precariously, threatening to topple. Mark reacted instinctively, steadying the stack, while Mrs. Holloway simultaneously reached to adjust it. Their hands met briefly, a fleeting, charged contact, followed by a small, spontaneous laugh. Leonard catalogued the micro-expressions, the soft exhalation of breath, and the subtle warmth that lingered in their eyes. The scenario, though simple, reinforced collaboration and trust, while also allowing the emergence of genuine, unprompted human emotion. By mid-morning, Leonard guided them toward Greystone Park, ostensibly for a cooperative scavenger challenge he had designed. Anonymous flyers, strategically placed at their doors, instructed them to locate markers hidden throughout the park, each containing a puzzle or small task. Leonard concealed himself among the leafless trees, camera hidden, notebook ready to record every gesture, glance, and tonal shift. The fog had begun to lift slightly, leaving the damp pathways slick and reflective, the air sharp and cold against exposed skin. The first task required joint effort, arranging a series of painted stones into a specific pattern, the solution contingent upon careful cooperation. Leonard observed as Mrs. Holloway hesitated, uncertain of placement, while Mark offered suggestions and guidance. Their hands brushed repeatedly over the stones, negotiating adjustments without overt discussion. Laughter surfaced spontaneously when a stone wobbled precariously, and they worked together instinctively to stabilize it. Leonard's meticulous cataloging captured every nuance: gestures, expressions, timing, and subtle emotional shifts. The operation was functioning perfectly, yet the unpredictability of authentic human interaction added a complexity Leonard could not fully control. A further unexpected moment occurred when a small bird alighted near their feet, pecking curiously at crumbs left behind by passers-by. Mrs. Holloway instinctively reached down to feed it, and Mark joined her spontaneously. Leonard recorded the unprompted tenderness and empathy in the interaction, cataloging micro-expressions, subtle smiles, and the slight tilt of heads toward one another. This spontaneous human response, outside the strict orchestration of his design, thrilled Leonard even as it reminded him of the fragile nature of control. By afternoon, Leonard introduced the moral component of the day's engagement. 2 envelopes, strategically placed along a narrow, damp alleyway. Each contained instructions for personal tasks designed to provoke ethical judgment and reliance on the other participant. Mrs. Holloway's task required her to seek Mark's guidance to solve a practical challenge, while Mark's task demanded honest and sensitive response to her request. The envelopes were designed to appear accidental, discovered in sequence to maintain the illusion of randomness. Leonard followed discreetly, camera hidden, observing every movement, pause, and reaction. Mrs. Holloway approached Mark with tentative questions, seeking guidance. Mark responded with a careful blend of empathy and instruction, balancing practical advice with respect for autonomy. Their dialogue was measured yet fluid, spontaneous yet framed by the controlled circumstances Leonard had orchestrated. Every gesture, every pause, every micro-expression was recorded in meticulous detail. Leonard recognized that Phase 3 had entered a critical phase. The participants' responses were genuine, yet heavily influenced by prior conditioning. The boundary between manipulation and authentic connection was nearly imperceptible. Returning to his apartment in the evening, Leonard meticulously reviewed the footage. The day had been successful. Cooperation, trust, and vulnerability had been demonstrated, yet spontaneous, uncalculated emotional expressions had emerged. These moments of authentic connection represented both the culmination of his orchestration and the unpredictable variables that could challenge his control. Leonard catalogued successes, anomalies, and patterns with obsessive precision, preparing for the next stage of the operation. He arranged small tokens for the following day: a rare flower seed packet for Mrs. Holloway, a personalized sketch for Mark, each accompanied by brief, carefully worded notes designed to reinforce trust and connection. Every detail, the timing of delivery, the manner of presentation, and the sequencing, was calculated with precision. Leonard understood that the forthcoming phase would require heightened observation, subtlety, and adjustment, as the bonds he had nurtured approached a moment of potential revelation. Late at night, Leonard sat in the dim glow of his desk lamp, reflecting on the complex interplay between orchestrated interaction and emergent human behavior. The social experiment had transcended simple design, becoming a living entity shaped by the organic responses of the participants. Leonard experienced a mixture of pride, obsession, and unease. The bonds were authentic in appearance, yet their evolution was increasingly independent of his control. The operation had taken on a life of its own, and Leonard felt simultaneously exhilarated and unnerved. He whispered to himself in the quiet of the apartment, "Tomorrow, the test will become absolute. Every bond, every gesture, every choice will reveal the true nature of friendship. Every decision will measure trust and loyalty." Leonard arranged his letters and tokens one final time, mentally rehearsing the day's sequence. Anticipation thrummed through him, bordering on obsession, and he remained awake for hours, imagining interactions, recalculating timing, and envisioning every potential micro-reaction. Outside, Greystone remained oblivious to the complex orchestration of human connection taking place above its streets. Leonard Pike, silent observer and manipulator, sat immersed in his anticipation, acutely aware that the participants' spontaneous interactions, the laughter, empathy, and subtle gestures, were simultaneously the product of his design and evidence of emergent human authenticity. Operation Friendship was no longer merely an experiment. It had become a living, unpredictable organism, fragile, yet compelling, delicate, yet unstoppable. Phase 3 was nearing its climax. Leonard understood that the next day would push Mrs. Holloway and Mark into situations demanding trust, ethical judgment, and emotional honesty. Every word, gesture, and choice would carry significance, revealing the depth of their bond and the boundaries of influence he had exerted. Leonard's mind raced with scenarios, contingencies, and possible outcomes. Failure was inconceivable, yet he knew that human unpredictability was the ultimate variable. As midnight passed, Leonard reviewed his plans one final time. Every micro-interaction had been anticipated, every variable accounted for. Yet he acknowledged that true human connection could never be entirely constrained. The operation was now a confrontation with unpredictability, a delicate balance of trust, manipulation, and genuine emotion. Outside, the city slept, unaware of the intricate choreography unfolding above its streets. Leonard Pike, obsessed, vigilant, and isolated, prepared to witness the next stage in the evolution of bonds that had grown beyond his strict control. Morning broke with a sullen gray sky, clouds hanging low and heavy as though the city itself were holding its breath. Leonard Pike was already awake, pen in hand, notebook open, mind fully engaged in the intricate lattice of human behavior he had been constructing. Phase 3 of Operation Friendship had reached a pivotal threshold. Yesterday had revealed both the efficacy and the limits of his orchestration. Cooperation and trust were emerging, yet unpredictability had begun to assert itself in subtle, undeniable ways. Leonard knew today's scenarios would be decisive. Breakfast was perfunctory, a black coffee and a dry slice of toast, but Leonard hardly registered the taste. His thoughts moved constantly, running sequences, rehearsing contingencies, and imagining the reactions of Mrs. Holloway and Mark to every potential stimulus. Timing, gestures, and minor provocations were calculated with obsessive precision. Every nuance of human response was a variable to be observed, every micro-expression a data point to be analyzed. The day ahead was designed to test the resilience of trust, the authenticity of bonds, and the limits of empathy. The first engagement took place at a small, somewhat decrepit art supply store on Oak Avenue. Leonard had ensured that both Mrs. Holloway and Mark would arrive independently, but within moments of each other, producing a controlled yet plausible convergence. The shop's interior was crowded and dimly lit, shelves heavy with paints, brushes, canvases, and stacks of paper. The faint scent of turpentine and varnish hung in the air, adding a sensory dimension to the interaction. Leonard positioned himself discreetly near the rear, notebook ready, observing carefully. Mrs. Holloway entered first, her umbrella still wet, hood pulled over her gray hair. She moved slowly along the aisles, her fingers grazing brushes and sketch pads, eyes scanning with deliberate curiosity. Leonard catalogued her movements, posture, and micro-expressions, noting the subtle tension that accompanied anticipation. Moments later, Mark entered, bag slung casually over one shoulder, moving with a mixture of curiosity and calculated nonchalance. The instant awareness of one another sparked a cascade of micro-responses, a brief shift of weight, a subtle adjustment of posture, a softening of the facial muscles. Leonard's pulse quickened. The operation was unfolding as planned, yet unpredictability had begun to color every interaction. A minor engineered incident occurred near the watercolor section. A precarious stack of sketch pads teetered dangerously, threatening to topple. Mark reacted instantly, steadying the stack, while Mrs. Holloway simultaneously reached to adjust it. Their hands met briefly, a flicker of contact that sent a subtle charge through both. Leonard catalogued the micro-expressions, the soft intake of breath, and the rapid yet imperceptible exchange of emotion. It was trivial in isolation, yet critical in the context of the larger orchestration. A moment designed to measure reflexive cooperation and emergent empathy. By mid-morning, Leonard guided them to Greystone Park, ostensibly for a creative exercise involving collaborative sketching and minor problem-solving. Anonymous notes, planted in their mailboxes, instructed them to locate markers placed throughout the park. Each marker contained a task or a riddle requiring cooperation to solve. Leonard followed discreetly, hidden among the skeletal trees, camera concealed, notebook ready. The fog had dissipated, leaving the park wet, reflective, and eerily quiet. The first task demanded collaborative placement of colored stones to form an abstract pattern. Mrs. Holloway hesitated, uncertain of placement, while Mark offered practical suggestions. Their hands brushed repeatedly, negotiating adjustments with minimal words. Spontaneous laughter erupted when a stone wobbled precariously, and they instinctively stabilized it together. Leonard catalogued every subtle gesture, micro-expression, and tonal inflection. The operation was functioning perfectly, yet the unplanned human interactions, the laughter, the tenderness, the emergent intimacy, introduced variables that Leonard could not fully control. A further unexpected moment occurred when a small squirrel approached, nibbling crumbs left behind. Mrs. Holloway instinctively extended a hand to feed it, and Mark joined her spontaneously. Leonard observed the unprompted kindness, the shared attention, and subtle expressions of warmth and delight. These uncalculated gestures, outside the strict architecture of his planning, thrilled Leonard even as they reminded him of the delicate fragility of his control. The operation was alive, dynamic, and increasingly independent of his orchestration. By afternoon, Leonard introduced the most challenging scenario yet, a moral test embedded in carefully designed circumstances. 2 envelopes were planted along a narrow, dimly lit alleyway behind the park, each containing instructions for tasks that would require ethical decision-making, vulnerability, and reliance on the other participant. Mrs. Holloway's task required her to seek Mark's guidance to complete a practical challenge. Mark's task asked him to respond with honesty and emotional sensitivity. The envelopes were positioned to be discovered sequentially, maintaining the illusion of chance. Leonard followed discreetly, recording every glance, gesture, and pause. Mrs. Holloway approached Mark hesitantly, seeking guidance. Mark responded with empathy and pragmatism, blending instruction with deference to her autonomy. The dialogue unfolded carefully, balancing spontaneity and subtle orchestration. Leonard catalogued every nuance, micro-expressions, tone of voice, timing of gestures. The operation had entered its most delicate stage. The participants' responses were authentic, yet heavily influenced by prior conditioning. The line between manipulation and genuine connection was almost imperceptible, a fine thread Leonard both cherished and feared. Returning to his apartment in the early evening, Leonard reviewed the day's footage with obsessive attention. Cooperation, trust, and vulnerability had been demonstrated, yet spontaneous displays of genuine emotion had emerged in subtle, unplanned ways. Leonard catalogued successes and anomalies alike, recognizing that these organic behaviors were the ultimate proof of his operation's efficacy and its inherent risk. The bonds he had nurtured were becoming independent, increasingly resistant to his control, and that unpredictability thrilled him as much as it unnerved him. He prepared tokens for the following day. A rare seed packet for Mrs. Holloway, a custom sketch for Mark, each accompanied by brief, carefully worded notes to reinforce trust and connection. Leonard meticulously scheduled the timing, positioning, and sequence of delivery. Phase 3 was approaching its climax. He understood that the forthcoming interactions would determine the trajectory of the friendships he had engineered, testing the boundaries of loyalty, empathy, and trust. Late at night, Leonard sat alone under the dim glow of his desk lamp, reflecting on the evolving complexity of the operation. The experiment had transformed from a series of orchestrated interactions into a dynamic organism, shaped as much by emergent human behavior as by his own meticulous planning. Leonard experienced a mix of pride, obsession, and apprehension. The bonds were authentic in appearance, yet their evolution was increasingly independent of his control. Operation Friendship had taken on a life of its own. He whispered into the stillness, "Tomorrow, the final test begins. Every decision, every gesture, every choice will reveal the true nature of their bond. Every moment will measure trust and loyalty." Leonard arranged his letters, sketches, and tokens for the next day, rehearsing sequences in his mind with obsessive precision. Anticipation hummed through him, bordering on mania, as he envisioned every potential response, every microgesture, every subtle shift in emotional tone. Outside, Greystone remained oblivious to the subtle choreography unfolding in its parks, streets, and narrow alleyways. Leonard Pike, silent observer and manipulator, remained poised at the edge of revelation. The participants' spontaneous interactions, the laughter, empathy, and gentle gestures, were now as vital as his orchestrations, evidence that the experiment had surpassed his original expectations. Operation Friendship was no longer simply a test. It had become a living, unpredictable entity, fragile yet compelling, delicate yet unstoppable. Phase 3 was nearing its conclusion. Leonard understood that the next day would demand heightened vigilance, subtle orchestration, and acute observation. The carefully nurtured bonds would be tested, ethical dilemmas confronted, and trust weighed in ways that could not be fully predicted. Leonard's mind raced with scenarios, contingencies, and potential outcomes. Failure was unthinkable, yet the unpredictable nature of human connection remained the ultimate variable, and Leonard embraced the uncertainty with a mix of fascination, thrill, and obsession. As midnight approached, Leonard reviewed the final preparations one last time. Every interaction had been anticipated, every potential deviation considered, yet he acknowledged that the essence of the operation, the authentic bonds between Mrs. Holloway and Mark, could not be wholly constrained. The experiment had become a confrontation with unpredictability, a delicate exploration of trust, manipulation, and genuine emotion. Outside, the city slept, unaware of the intricate social orchestration unfolding in its streets. Leonard Pike, vigilant and obsessed, prepared to witness the next stage, where the bonds he had engineered would be pushed to their ultimate test. The day began with an oppressive stillness, the gray sky pressing down on Greystone like a weight. Leonard Pike was awake well before dawn, pen in hand, notebook open, mind racing with calculations and contingency plans. Phase 3 of Operation Friendship had arrived at a critical juncture. Yesterday had revealed both the efficacy of his orchestrations and the limits of control. The participants' responses were increasingly authentic, unpredictable, and profoundly human. Today, Leonard knew, the test would escalate to a level where every decision, gesture, and choice would matter. Breakfast was minimal. Black coffee and a slice of stale toast consumed mechanically as Leonard reviewed his plans. His mind was alive with possibilities, potential deviations, unexpected reactions, and emergent dynamics between Mrs. Holloway and Mark. He considered every variable, the timing of encounters, the placement of objects, the sequence of tasks, and rehearsed scenarios in obsessive detail. Today's design would be the culmination of weeks of careful orchestration, a final test of trust, cooperation, and emotional authenticity. The first encounter was set in a narrow, quiet street lined with independent shops and cafes. Leonard had arranged for both participants to arrive independently but nearly simultaneously, ensuring a controlled convergence. He stationed himself discreetly behind a lamppost, notebook open, observing every gesture, micro-expression, and nuance of posture. The street was damp from overnight drizzle, the scent of wet asphalt and baked goods mingling in the air. Leonard's pulse quickened. Mrs. Holloway entered the street first, umbrella dripping lightly, hood drawn over her gray hair. She walked slowly, scanning shop windows with deliberate curiosity. Leonard catalogued her posture, the tilt of her head, the subtle exhalations of breath that betrayed a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. Moments later, Mark arrived, bag slung casually, eyes sweeping the street with a blend of curiosity and apparent nonchalance. Their awareness of each other triggered subtle shifts, a glance that lingered slightly too long, a soft adjustment of weight, a micro-gesture of acknowledgement. Leonard noted every detail, recognizing the delicate interplay between orchestrated timing and genuine human response. A minor engineered incident occurred outside a small antique shop. A crate of fragile objects was deliberately left unstable. Mark instinctively reached to steady it, while Mrs. Holloway reacted simultaneously. Their hands brushed briefly, a fleeting contact charged with unspoken connection. Leonard catalogued the moment meticulously. Micro-expressions, rapid intake of breath, and subtle emotional resonance. Though minor, the incident served as a precise measure of cooperative instinct, empathy, and emergent trust, a microcosm of the broader operation. By mid-morning, Leonard guided them toward Greystone Park for a collaborative challenge. Anonymous notes, delivered days prior, instructed them to locate hidden markers throughout the park, each containing a task requiring mutual cooperation. Leonard followed discreetly, concealed among leafless trees, camera hidden, notebook ready to capture every nuance. The fog had lifted, leaving the park wet, reflective, and eerily silent. The first challenge involved arranging painted stones into an intricate geometric pattern. Mrs. Holloway hesitated, uncertain of placement, while Mark offered gentle guidance. Their hands brushed repeatedly over the stones, adjustments negotiated silently. Laughter emerged spontaneously when a stone teetered precariously, prompting a joint effort to stabilize it. Leonard catalogued every microgesture, expression, and tone, noting the interplay of cooperation and emerging intimacy. The operation was functioning perfectly, yet the unpredictability of authentic human interaction introduced complexity beyond Leonard's control. A further unexpected moment occurred when a small bird alighted nearby, pecking at crumbs left by passers-by. Mrs. Holloway instinctively fed it, and Mark joined her spontaneously. Leonard noted the tender, unprompted interaction, cataloging subtle smiles, eye contact, and the warmth in their gestures. This small, organic moment of connection thrilled Leonard even as it reminded him of the fragile boundaries between orchestration and genuine human emotion. By afternoon, Leonard introduced the moral component of the operation. 2 envelopes, strategically placed along a narrow alleyway behind the park. Each contained instructions for a task designed to provoke ethical decision-making, reliance, and vulnerability. Mrs. Holloway's task required her to consult Mark before executing a challenge, while Mark's task demanded honesty and sensitivity in response. The envelopes were designed to appear accidental, discovered in sequence, preserving the illusion of randomness. Leonard followed discreetly, observing every glance, gesture, and pause. Mrs. Holloway approached Mark cautiously, seeking guidance. Mark responded thoughtfully, blending empathy with instruction, honoring her autonomy while providing support. Their dialogue unfolded organically, yet remained framed by Leonard's careful orchestration. Every subtle gesture, every micro-expression, every tonal inflection was catalogued. Leonard recognized the delicate balance. Their responses were authentic, yet influenced by prior conditioning. The boundary between manipulation and genuine connection had become almost imperceptible. Returning to his apartment in the early evening, Leonard reviewed the day's footage. Cooperation, trust, and vulnerability had been demonstrated, yet spontaneous expressions of genuine emotion had emerged in subtle, unplanned ways. Leonard catalogued both successes and anomalies, acknowledging that these organic behaviors represented both the culmination of his orchestration and the inherent unpredictability of human behavior. The bonds he had nurtured were becoming independent, increasingly resistant to control, and that unpredictability thrilled him as much as it unnerved him. He prepared tokens for the following day: a rare flower seed packet for Mrs. Holloway, a custom sketch for Mark, each accompanied by carefully worded notes intended to reinforce trust and connection. Leonard meticulously scheduled the timing, placement, and sequence of delivery. He understood that the next phase would test the bonds he had engineered to their limits, revealing the depths of loyalty, empathy, and cooperation. Late at night, Leonard sat under the dim glow of his desk lamp, reflecting on the evolving dynamics of the operation. What had begun as a series of orchestrated interactions had become a living organism, shaped by emergent human behavior. Leonard experienced pride, obsession, and unease simultaneously. The bonds were authentic in appearance yet increasingly independent of his control. Operation Friendship had taken on a life of its own, fragile yet compelling, delicate yet unstoppable. He whispered into this quiet apartment, "Tomorrow, the ultimate test begins. Every decision, every gesture, every choice will reveal the true nature of this friendship. Every action will measure trust, loyalty, and empathy." Leonard arranged letters, sketches, and tokens for the next day, rehearsing sequences in his mind with obsessive precision. Anticipation hummed through him, bordering on mania, as he imagined every potential response, every subtle shift in expression, every micro-gesture. Outside, Greystone remained oblivious to the subtle choreography unfolding in its streets and parks. Leonard Pike, silent manipulator and vigilant observer, was poised at the edge of revelation. The participants' spontaneous interactions, The laughter, empathy, and tenderness were now as vital as his orchestrations, evidence that the experiment had surpassed its original design. Operation Friendship was no longer merely an experiment. It had become a living, unpredictable entity, fragile yet compelling, delicate yet unstoppable. Phase 3 was nearing its culmination. Leonard understood that the next day would demand heightened vigilance, acute observation, and precise orchestration. The bonds he had nurtured would be tested, ethical dilemmas confronted, and trust weighed. Leonard's mind raced with scenarios, contingencies, and potential outcomes. Failure was unthinkable, yet human unpredictability remained the ultimate variable, one that Leonard embraced with equal measures of fascination, thrill, and obsessive anticipation. As midnight passed, Leonard reviewed his final preparations. Every interaction had been anticipated, every potential deviation considered. Yet he recognized that the essence of the operation, the authentic bonds between Mrs. Holloway and Mark, could not be entirely constrained. The experiment had become a confrontation with unpredictability, a delicate exploration of trust, manipulation, and genuine emotion. Outside, the city slept, unaware of the intricate social choreography unfolding. Leonard Pike, vigilant and obsessed, prepared to witness the next stage, where the bonds he had carefully engineered would face their ultimate test. Dawn broke over Greystone with a muted orange glow, filtering through low clouds and casting a diffused light across the streets and park. Leonard Pike was already awake, notebook open, pen poised, mind running a relentless stream of calculations and contingencies. Phase 3 had entered its climactic stage. The prior days had revealed both the strength of the bonds he had orchestrated and the subtle unpredictability of genuine human emotion. Today, Leonard knew, the tests would stretch Mrs. Holloway and Mark to the limits of trust, empathy, and cooperation. Breakfast was negligible, black coffee and a dry slice of toast consumed mechanically. Leonard's attention was fully absorbed by the day ahead. He reviewed sequences, predicted behaviors, and rehearsed contingencies. Every variable, every potential reaction, every gesture was catalogued in obsessive detail. The operation had evolved beyond mere orchestration. It had become a living network of human interactions, each one delicate, interdependent, and unpredictable. Leonard's anticipation was a heady mix of thrill and obsession. The first orchestrated encounter occurred at the narrow corridor leading to the Greystone Library. Leonard had ensured that both participants would arrive independently, yet within moments of each other. He positioned himself discreetly behind a stack of crates, observing with meticulous attention. The corridor was quiet, the faint scent of old paper and varnish filling the air, providing a sensory backdrop for interaction. Leonard's pulse quickened. Mrs. Holloway arrived first, umbrella still damp, hood drawn over her gray hair. She moved cautiously, fingers lightly brushing the walls as she advanced. Leonard catalogued her posture, subtle shifts in weight and micro-expressions, noting the signs of anticipation and alertness. Moments later, Mark entered, carrying his bag, eyes scanning the corridor with casual curiosity. Their recognition of each other triggered immediate micro-responses, slight adjustments of posture, fleeting glances, and softening expressions. Leonard noted every subtle interaction, aware that the delicate balance of control and unpredictability was at its peak. A minor engineered mishap was introduced. A crate of fragile objects left slightly askew threatened to topple. Mark reacted instinctively, steadying the crate, while Mrs. Holloway simultaneously extended her hand. Their fingers brushed briefly, a fleeting spark of contact, and both laughed softly, surprise and connection mingling in the gesture. Leonard catalogued every detail, noting micro-expressions, soft intakes of breath, and the subtle warmth in their eyes. It was a trivial event, yet in the context of the operation, it served as a precise measure of cooperative instinct, empathy, and emergent trust. By mid-morning, Leonard guided them toward Greystone Park for a collaborative challenge designed to test creativity, problem-solving, and mutual reliance. Anonymous notes delivered previously instructed them to locate hidden markers throughout the park. Each marker contained a task or puzzle requiring cooperative effort. Leonard followed discreetly, concealed among the leafless trees, camera hidden, notebook ready to capture every nuance of gesture, expression, and tonal variation. The first task involved arranging colored tiles into a specific pattern, requiring both participants to negotiate placement without explicit instructions. Mrs. Holloway hesitated, uncertain, while Mark offered suggestions. Their hands brushed repeatedly, adjusting tiles in silent coordination. Laughter arose spontaneously when a tile slipped, prompting a joint effort to stabilize it. Leonard cataloged each gesture, tone, and expression, observing the interplay between orchestrated interaction and emergent intimacy. The operation was functioning as designed, yet the unpredictability of authentic human emotion added complexity beyond his control. An unanticipated moment occurred when a small bird landed near their feet, pecking at crumbs left by passers-by. Mrs. Holloway instinctively extended her hand to feed it, and Mark joined her. Leonard noted the tender, spontaneous connection, cataloging smiles, eye contact, and subtle warmth. These unprompted gestures, outside the strict boundaries of his design, excited Leonard and reminded him of the delicate balance between orchestration and genuine human interaction. The operation had become a living, unpredictable entity. By afternoon, Leonard introduced the moral test, the most challenging yet. 2 envelopes, strategically placed along a narrow, quiet alley behind the park, contained instructions for tasks requiring ethical judgment, trust, and vulnerability. Mrs. Holloway's envelope instructed her to consult Mark before executing a challenge, while Mark's envelope required him to respond with honesty and empathy. Leonard observed from a concealed vantage point as they discovered the envelopes in sequence, maintaining the illusion of randomness. Mrs. Holloway approached Mark with measured caution, seeking guidance. Mark responded with thoughtfulness, balancing instruction with deference to her autonomy. Their dialogue unfolded naturally, yet remained influenced by the subtle framework Leonard had established. Every gesture, micro-expression, and tonal shift was catalogued. Leonard recognized the delicate nature of this stage. Responses were authentic, yet tempered by prior conditioning. The boundary between manipulation and genuine connection had grown almost imperceptible, a thin line both thrilling and unsettling to Leonard. Returning to his apartment in the early evening, Leonard reviewed the day's footage meticulously. Cooperation, empathy, and vulnerability had been demonstrated, yet spontaneous emotional responses had emerged in subtle, unplanned ways. Leonard cataloged every instance of emergent authenticity, understanding that these moments validated both the operation's efficacy and its inherent unpredictability. The bonds he had nurtured were becoming independent, increasingly resistant to control, and that realization both exhilarated and unnerved him. He prepared the final tokens for the following day: a rare flower seed packet for Mrs. Holloway, a personal sketch for Mark, each accompanied by carefully crafted notes reinforcing trust and connection. Leonard scheduled precise timing, placement, and sequencing. He knew that tomorrow would test the strength of the bonds he had engineered, measuring loyalty, empathy, and cooperation against the unpredictable dynamics of human emotion. Late at night, Leonard sat alone under the dim light of his desk lamp, reflecting on the operation's evolving complexity. What had begun as orchestrated scenarios had transformed into a dynamic, living system, shaped by emergent human behavior. Leonard felt pride, obsession, and unease simultaneously. The bonds were authentic in appearance yet increasingly independent of his influence. Operation Friendship had transcended its original design, becoming an unpredictable entity, delicate yet compelling, fragile yet unstoppable. He whispered to himself, "Tomorrow, the ultimate test begins. Every action, every decision, every choice will expose the true nature of this friendship. Every gesture will measure trust, loyalty, and empathy." Leonard arranged letters, sketches, and tokens for the following day, rehearsing sequences with obsessive precision. Anticipation hummed through him, bordering on mania, as he imagined every possible response, subtle shift in expression, and microgesture. Outside, Greystone remained unaware of the intricate orchestration unfolding in its streets, parks, and alleyways. Leonard Pike, silent manipulator and vigilant observer, poised at the edge of revelation, understood that the participants' spontaneous interactions, the laughter, empathy, and tender gestures, were now as vital as his orchestrations. Operation Friendship was no longer merely a calculated experiment. It had become a living, unpredictable entity, fragile yet compelling, delicate yet unstoppable. Phase 3 was approaching its conclusion. Leonard knew that the next day would demand heightened observation, precision, and subtle orchestration. The carefully nurtured bonds would be tested, ethical dilemmas confronted, and trust measured in ways that could not be fully predicted. Leonard's mind raced with scenarios, contingencies, and outcomes. Failure was unthinkable, yet human unpredictability remained the ultimate variable. One Leonard faced with equal measures of fascination, thrill, and obsession. As midnight passed, Leonard reviewed the final preparations one last time. Every interaction had been anticipated, every potential deviation accounted for. Yet he recognized that the core essence of the operation, the authentic bond between Mrs. Holloway and Mark, could not be constrained. The experiment had become a confrontation with unpredictability, a delicate exploration of trust, manipulation, and genuine emotion. Outside, the city slept, oblivious to the intricate social choreography unfolding. Leonard Pike, vigilant and obsessive, prepared to witness the next stage, where the relationships he had engineered would face their ultimate challenge. The city awoke under a pale, hesitant sunlight, the streets of Greystone damp from the overnight mist. Leonard Pike was already awake, notebook open, pen poised, and mind operating at a feverish pace. Phase 3 of Operation Friendship had arrived at its most critical stage. Every previous encounter had laid the groundwork for today. Trust, cooperation, and empathy had been tested, but unpredictability lingered in the subtle, spontaneous reactions of Mrs. Holloway and Mark. Today, Leonard understood, the true depth of their connection would be revealed. Breakfast was consumed mechanically. Black coffee, a thin slice of toast. Leonard's mind was entirely absorbed in scenario planning. He rehearsed sequences, anticipated deviations, and cataloged variables. Every gesture, every micro-expression, every potential lapse in composure was a point of data. Today's design was intended to push boundaries, forcing decisions that would expose the resilience of trust and the authenticity of emotional bonds. The first encounter was staged at the Greystone Civic Garden, a small, secluded courtyard filled with carefully arranged flower beds and cobblestone paths. Leonard had ensured that both participants would arrive independently, yet within moments of each other. He stationed himself behind a low hedge, notebook ready, observing every detail. The morning air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and early blooms. Leonard's pulse quickened with anticipation. Mrs. Holloway arrived first, umbrella tucked under her arm, hood drawn over her gray hair. She moved cautiously along the cobblestone paths, fingers brushing the edges of flower beds, eyes scanning with deliberate attention. Leonard cataloged posture, subtle movements, and micro-expressions, noting the combination of curiosity and restraint. Moments later, Mark arrived, bag slung casually, eyes sweeping the garden with a mixture of amusement and focus. Their awareness of each other triggered subtle adjustments, a slight shift in weight, a fleeting glance, a softening of expression. Leonard observed every nuance, aware that the delicate interplay between orchestration and unpredictability had reached a peak. A minor contrivance was introduced, a small watering can placed precariously near the edge of a flower bed. Mark instinctively moved to steady it, while Mrs. Holloway simultaneously reached forward. Their hands brushed briefly, a momentary contact that sparked a faint charge of connection. Leonard cataloged micro-expressions, soft breaths, and the subtle warmth conveyed in the gesture. Though minor in isolation, the incident served as a precise measure of cooperation, reflexive empathy, and emerging trust. By mid-morning, Leonard guided them toward the far corner of the garden, where a scavenger challenge awaited. Anonymous notes, placed discreetly days earlier, instructed them to locate hidden markers. Each marker contained a task requiring collaboration and negotiation. Leonard followed discreetly, concealed behind a low stone wall notebook and camera ready. The morning sun struggled through the cloud cover, casting muted shadows over wet paths, creating a quiet, contemplative atmosphere. The first challenge involved arranging colored tiles into a specific sequence based on subtle clues. Mrs. Holloway hesitated, unsure of placement, while Mark offered guidance. Their hands brushed repeatedly, coordinating placement without verbal instruction. Spontaneous laughter erupted when a tile wobbled, prompting a collaborative effort to stabilize it. Leonard cataloged every microgesture, expression, and tonal nuance, observing the delicate balance between planned interaction and emergent intimacy. The operation functioned as intended, yet the unpredictability of authentic human behavior added a variable Leonard could not entirely control. An unanticipated moment occurred when a small cat appeared from behind a garden wall, mewing softly at their feet. Mrs. Holloway instinctively knelt to pet it, and Mark joined her. Leonard noted the spontaneous kindness, cataloging subtle smiles, eye contact, and the warmth in their gestures. These unprompted interactions, beyond the confines of his orchestration, thrilled Leonard while reminding him of the fragile line between manipulation and genuine connection. Operation Friendship had become a living, unpredictable organism. By afternoon, Leonard introduced the moral component, the most challenging yet. 2 envelopes, carefully placed along a narrow, shaded path behind the garden, contained instructions for tasks designed to provoke ethical decision-making, reliance, and vulnerability. Mrs. Holloway's task required her to consult Mark before executing a challenge, while Mark's task demanded honesty and sensitivity. The envelopes were positioned sequentially to maintain the illusion of randomness. Leonard observed from a concealed vantage point as the participants discovered and executed the tasks, noting every gesture, pause, and tonal shift. Mrs. Holloway approached Mark hesitantly, seeking guidance. Mark responded thoughtfully, blending instruction with empathy, respecting her autonomy while providing support. Their dialogue flowed naturally, framed by subtle orchestration. Leonard cataloged every micro-expression, tonal fluctuation, and minor adjustment in posture. He recognized the delicacy of this stage. Responses were authentic, yet influenced by prior conditioning. The boundary between manipulation and genuine connection had become almost imperceptible, a taut line that both thrilled and unnerved him. Returning to his apartment in the evening, Leonard reviewed the footage. Cooperation, empathy, and vulnerability had been demonstrated, yet unplanned emotional expressions had emerged in subtle, spontaneous ways. Leonard cataloged these anomalies and successes alike, understanding that organic behaviors validated the operation's efficacy while highlighting its inherent unpredictability. The bonds he had nurtured were becoming independent, increasingly resistant to his influence, and that unpredictability exhilarated and unnerved him in equal measure. He prepared the final tokens for the following day: a rare flower seed packet for Mrs. Holloway, a personal sketch for Mark, each accompanied by carefully crafted notes to reinforce trust and connection. Leonard meticulously scheduled the timing, placement, and sequence of delivery. He knew that tomorrow would test the strength of the bonds he had engineered, confronting them with ethical dilemmas and requiring decisions that could not be predicted. Late at night, Leonard sat under the dim glow of his desk lamp, reflecting on the operation's complexity. What had begun as orchestrated interactions had transformed into a dynamic, living system shaped by emergent human behavior. Leonard experienced pride, obsession, and unease simultaneously. The bonds were authentic in appearance, yet increasingly independent of his control. Operation Friendship had transcended its original design, becoming a fragile, yet compelling, delicate, yet unstoppable entity. He whispered to himself, "Tomorrow, the ultimate test begins. Every action, every decision, every choice will expose the true nature of this friendship. Every gesture will measure trust, loyalty, and empathy." Leonard arranged letters, sketches, and tokens for the next day, rehearsing sequences obsessively. Anticipation hummed through him, bordering on mania, as he envisioned every possible response, subtle shift in expression, and micro-gesture. Outside, Greystone remained unaware of the intricate choreography unfolding in its streets, parks, and alleyways. Leonard Pike, silent manipulator and vigilant observer, poised at the edge of revelation, understood that the participants' spontaneous interactions, the laughter, empathy, and tender gestures, were now as vital as his orchestrations. Operation Friendship was no longer merely a calculated experiment. It had become a living, unpredictable organism, fragile yet compelling, delicate yet unstoppable. Phase 3 was approaching its culmination. Leonard knew that the next day would demand heightened observation, precision, and subtle orchestration. The carefully nurtured bonds would be tested, ethical dilemmas confronted, and trust measured in ways that could not be fully predicted. Leonard's mind raced with scenarios, contingencies, and outcomes. Failure was unthinkable, yet human unpredictability remained the ultimate variable, one Leonard faced with equal measures of fascination, thrill, and obsessive anticipation. As midnight passed, Leonard reviewed the final preparations one last time. Every interaction had been anticipated, every potential deviation accounted for. Yet he recognized that the core essence of the operation, the authentic bond between Mrs. Holloway and Mark, could not be entirely constrained. The experiment had become a confrontation with unpredictability, a delicate exploration of trust, manipulation, and genuine emotion. Outside, the city slept, oblivious to the intricate social choreography unfolding. Leonard Pike, vigilant and obsessive, prepared to witness the next stage, where the relationships he had carefully engineered would face their ultimate challenge. Morning arrived with an almost imperceptible chill, the sun struggling to pierce the thick veil of gray clouds over Greystone. Leonard Pike was already awake, notebook in hand, pen poised, mind racing with strategies and contingencies. Phase 3 of Operation Friendship had reached its final decisive stage. Every prior encounter had tested trust, empathy, and cooperation, but today's design would confront the participants with challenges that could not be fully anticipated, requiring authentic responses and revealing the deepest measures of their connection. Breakfast was functional. Black coffee, a thin slice of toast, eaten almost mechanically. Leonard's attention was fully absorbed in the upcoming tasks. He rehearsed every possible scenario, anticipating deviations and cataloging variables. Each gesture, micro-expression, and fleeting nuance could become critical in measuring the authenticity of their bond. Today's events would not merely test orchestrated cooperation, they would force choices, ethical and emotional, that could not be predicted, and Leonard's anticipation bordered on mania. The first orchestrated encounter occurred at the Greystone Community Hall, a modest building tucked between residential streets. Leonard had ensured that Mrs. Holloway and Mark would arrive independently, yet within moments of each other. He positioned himself behind a stack of chairs, notebook ready, observing each motion, micro-expression, and subtle gesture. The hall was dim, sunlight filtering through dust-specked windows, casting long shadows across the floor. Leonard's pulse quickened. The operation was entering its most critical phase. Mrs. Holloway arrived first, umbrella tucked under her arm, hood drawn over her gray hair. She moved cautiously, scanning the sparse interior with deliberate attention. Leonard cataloged every nuance. Posture, weight shifts, micro-expressions betraying curiosity mixed with apprehension. Moments later, Mark entered, bag slung casually over one shoulder, his eyes sweeping the room with casual focus. Their recognition of each other triggered subtle adjustments, a slight tilt of the head, a fleeting glance, the softening of facial muscles. Leonard noted each detail, aware that unpredictability had reached its peak. A minor engineered incident was introduced. A stack of papers teetered precariously on a table. Mark reacted instinctively, steadying the stack while Mrs. Holloway simultaneously extended her hand. Their fingers brushed briefly, a fleeting touch that carried a subtle, unspoken connection. Leonard cataloged micro-expressions, soft intakes of breath, and the warmth in their eyes. Though minor in isolation, the incident served as a precise measure of cooperation, reflexive empathy, and emerging trust, a microcosm of the entire operation. By mid-morning, Leonard guided them toward a staged creative challenge in a side room. Anonymous notes, planted days earlier, instructed the participants to locate hidden markers, each containing a task or puzzle that required cooperation, negotiation, and subtle communication. Leonard followed discreetly, concealed behind a partition, notebook and camera ready. The room was quiet, the faint scent of dust and varnish adding to the contemplative atmosphere. The participants moved deliberately, unaware of the full scope of the experiment, yet acting as though guided by instinct. The first task involved arranging a series of color-coded tiles into an abstract design, requiring negotiation without explicit instruction. Mrs. Holloway hesitated, unsure of placement, while Mark offered guidance. Their hands brushed repeatedly, adjusting tiles in silent coordination. Laughter erupted when a tile slipped, prompting a joint effort to stabilize it. Leonard cataloged each micro-gesture, expression, and tonal nuance, observing the interplay between orchestrated interaction and spontaneous intimacy. The operation functioned as intended, yet authentic human unpredictability added a variable beyond Leonard's control. An unexpected moment occurred when a small bird appeared near the window, pecking at crumbs left by a passerby outside. Mrs. Holloway instinctively reached to feed it, and Mark followed suit. Leonard noted the tender, spontaneous connection, cataloging subtle smiles, shared glances, and the warmth conveyed in their gestures. These unprompted interactions thrilled Leonard while reminding him of the fragile line between manipulation and genuine human connection. Operation Friendship had become an unpredictable, living entity. By afternoon, Leonard introduced the moral test, the culmination of Phase 3. 2 envelopes, strategically placed on a narrow ledge near the hall's back exit, contained instructions for tasks designed to provoke ethical judgment, vulnerability, and reliance. Mrs. Holloway's envelope instructed her to consult Mark before executing a challenge, while Mark's envelope demanded honesty and empathy. The envelopes were designed to appear discovered by chance. Leonard observed from a concealed position as the participants discovered them, carefully noting each gesture, pause, and tonal shift. Mrs. Holloway approached Mark hesitantly, seeking guidance. Mark responded thoughtfully, balancing instruction with empathy, respecting her autonomy while providing support. Their dialogue flowed naturally, framed subtly by Leonard's orchestration. Every gesture, micro-expression, and tonal fluctuation was catalogued. Leonard understood the delicacy of this stage. Their responses were authentic, yet influenced by prior conditioning. The boundary between manipulation and genuine connection was almost imperceptible, a taut line that thrilled and unnerved him simultaneously. Returning to his apartment that evening, Leonard reviewed the day's footage meticulously. Cooperation, empathy, and vulnerability had been demonstrated, yet unplanned emotional expressions had emerged in subtle, spontaneous ways. Leonard cataloged every instance of emergent authenticity, understanding that these moments validated both the operation's efficacy and its inherent unpredictability. The bonds he had nurtured were becoming independent, increasingly resistant to control, and that unpredictability excited and unnerved him in equal measure. He prepared the final tokens for the next day, a rare flower seed packet for Mrs. Holloway, a personal sketch for Mark, each accompanied by carefully worded notes reinforcing trust and connection. Leonard scheduled precise timing, placement, and sequence. He knew that tomorrow would test the strength of the bonds he had engineered, confronting them with ethical dilemmas and requiring decisions that could not be anticipated. Late at night, Leonard sat under the dim glow of his desk lamp, reflecting on the operation's complexity. What had begun as orchestrated interactions had transformed into a dynamic, living system, shaped by emergent human behavior. Leonard felt pride, obsession, and unease simultaneously. The bonds were authentic in appearance yet increasingly independent of his influence. Operation Friendship had transcended its original design, becoming an unpredictable, fragile, yet compelling entity. He whispered to himself, "Tomorrow, the ultimate test begins." Every gesture, every decision, every action will reveal the true depth of this friendship. Every moment will measure trust, loyalty, and empathy. Leonard arranged letters, sketches, and tokens for the following day, rehearsing sequences obsessively. Anticipation hummed through him, bordering on mania, as he envisioned every possible response, subtle expression, and micro-gesture. Outside, Greystone remained oblivious to the intricate social choreography unfolding in its streets, parks, and buildings. Leonard Pike, silent manipulator and vigilant observer, poised at the edge of revelation, understood that the participants' spontaneous interactions, the laughter, empathy, and tender gestures, were now as vital as his orchestrations. Operation Friendship was no longer merely a calculated experiment. It had become a living, unpredictable organism, fragile yet compelling, delicate yet unstoppable. Phase 3 was approaching its ultimate conclusion. Leonard knew that the next day would demand heightened observation, precision, and subtle orchestration. The bonds he had nurtured would be tested, ethical dilemmas confronted, and trust measured in ways that could not be fully predicted. Leonard's mind raced with scenarios, contingencies, and outcomes. Failure was unthinkable, yet human unpredictability remained the ultimate variable, one he faced with equal measures of fascination, thrill, and obsession. As midnight passed, Leonard reviewed the final preparations one last time. Every interaction had been anticipated, every potential deviation considered, yet he recognized that the core essence of the operation, the authentic bond between Mrs. Holloway and Mark, could not be fully constrained. The experiment had become a confrontation with unpredictability, a delicate exploration of trust, manipulation, and genuine emotion. Outside, the city slept, oblivious to the intricate choreography unfolding. Leonard Pike, vigilant and obsessive, prepared to witness the ultimate revelation, where the relationships he had engineered would face their final challenge. Dawn broke over Greystone in a muted cascade of light, the streets slick with overnight rain. Leonard Pike was already awake, notebook open, pen poised, heart racing with anticipation. Today marked the culmination of Phase 3 and the ultimate test of Operation Friendship. Weeks of observation, orchestration, and subtle manipulation had led to this moment. Every interaction, every gesture, every choice would now reveal the true depth of the bonds he had nurtured between Mrs. Holloway and Mark. Breakfast was perfunctory, black coffee and a dry slice of toast. Leonard's mind was consumed by the sequences to come, by the contingencies and potential deviations he might face. He reviewed each stage of the final challenge, rehearsed outcomes in his mind, and cataloged the smallest variables. Today was not merely about cooperation or empathy. It was about authentic, unprompted decision-making, testing the limits of trust, loyalty, and emotional integrity. The first encounter was set in Greystone's abandoned theater, a dusty, dimly lit space with crumbling velvet seats and a faint scent of mildew. Leonard had arranged for both participants to arrive independently, but nearly simultaneously. Concealed behind a rotting curtain, he observed every movement, every micro-expression, notebook ready. The air was thick with tension and the faint aroma of damp wood, providing a fitting stage for the final orchestration. Mrs. Holloway arrived first, umbrella tucked under her arm, hood drawn over her gray hair. She moved carefully, scanning the stage and broken seats with a mixture of curiosity and trepidation. Leonard catalogued each gesture, posture shift, and micro-expression. Moments later, Mark entered, bag slung over his shoulder, eyes scanning the theater with practiced curiosity. Their awareness of one another triggered subtle adjustments. A slight tilt of the head, a fleeting glance, and the softening of facial muscles. Leonard noted every detail, aware that the unpredictability of authentic human response was at its peak. A minor engineered incident introduced the first test. A rickety platform, meant to serve as a makeshift stage, creaked ominously under weight. Mark instinctively moved to steady it, while Mrs. Holloway reached out simultaneously. Their hands brushed, brief contact sparking an electric moment of shared awareness. Leonard catalogued micro-expressions, breaths, and subtle shifts in posture. Though small, the incident served as a crucial measure of instinctive cooperation and emerging trust. By mid-morning, Leonard guided them to a series of hidden markers throughout the theater, each containing tasks demanding coordination, negotiation, and creative problem-solving. Anonymous notes planted earlier directed them to interact and collaborate without direct instruction. Leonard followed discreetly, notebook and camera at hand, recording gestures, expressions, and the soft tones of conversation. Dust motes floated in the sunlight streaming through cracked windows, adding an almost ethereal quality to the scene. The first task involved arranging painted tiles in a geometric pattern, requiring nonverbal communication and subtle negotiation. Mrs. Holloway hesitated, unsure where to place a tile, while Mark offered a gentle suggestion. Their hands brushed repeatedly, coordinating silently. Laughter arose when a tile slipped, prompting a cooperative effort to stabilize it. Leonard catalogued each movement, tonal variation, and micro-expression, recognizing the delicate balance between orchestrated interaction and spontaneous intimacy. Authentic unpredictability had now fully merged with his design. An unanticipated moment occurred when a stray cat wandered across the floor, brushing against their ankles. Mrs. Holloway instinctively knelt to pet it, and Mark joined her, both smiling naturally. Leonard noted this spontaneous kindness, cataloging smiles, glances, and the warmth in their gestures. These unprompted interactions thrilled Leonard while underscoring the fragile boundary between manipulation and genuine connection. Operation Friendship had become a living, unpredictable organism, resistant to full control. By afternoon, Leonard introduced the moral and emotional climax. 2 envelopes placed strategically near the theater's rear exit. Mrs. Holloway's instructions required her to consult Mark before executing a complex task. Mark's envelope demanded honesty and ethical discernment. Leonard observed from concealment as the participants discovered the envelopes and deliberated. Their choices would test not only trust and cooperation, but the authentic depth of their bond. Mrs. Holloway approached Mark cautiously, presenting her challenge and seeking guidance. Mark responded thoughtfully, balancing instruction with empathy, honoring her autonomy while providing support. Their dialogue flowed naturally, yet the framework Leonard had established subtly guided decisions. Leonard catalogued every micro-expression, shift in posture, and tonal inflection. He recognized the delicacy of the moment. Responses were authentic, yet influenced by the orchestrated environment. The line between manipulation and genuine connection had become almost invisible. Returning to his apartment that evening, Leonard reviewed the footage with obsessive scrutiny. Cooperation, empathy, and vulnerability had all been demonstrated, yet spontaneous emotional responses, unplanned, authentic, and nuanced, had emerged throughout the day. Leonard catalogued these anomalies, realizing they validated both the experiment's design and the inherent unpredictability of human behavior. The bonds he had nurtured were now fully independent, evolving beyond his direct influence. This unpredictability thrilled and unnerved him simultaneously. He prepared the final tokens, a rare flower seed packet for Mrs. Holloway and a personal sketch for Mark, each accompanied by carefully composed notes reinforcing trust, connection, and mutual appreciation. Leonard scheduled precise timing and placement. Tomorrow, these tokens would serve as symbols of recognition, gratitude, and the enduring nature of their bond. They represented not control, but affirmation, a subtle acknowledgement that the participants' choices had transcended manipulation. Late at night, Leonard sat under the dim light of his desk lamp, reflecting on the operation's intricate dynamics. What had begun as orchestrated exercises had evolved into a living, organic network of human interaction, shaped as much by spontaneity as design. Leonard felt a mixture of pride, obsession, and unease. The bonds were authentic, independent, and resilient. Operation Friendship had transformed into a fragile yet compelling organism, delicate yet unstoppable. He whispered to himself, "The ultimate test is complete. Every choice, every action, every gesture has revealed the true nature of this friendship. Every moment has measured trust, loyalty, and empathy." Leonard arranged the letters, sketches, and tokens one final time, rehearsing sequences mentally with obsessive care. Anticipation hummed through him, now tinged with relief and quiet satisfaction. Outside, Greystone slept, oblivious to the intricate orchestration that had unfolded within its streets, parks, and abandoned theater. Leonard Pike, silent manipulator, vigilant observer, and obsessive chronicler, understood that the participants' spontaneous interactions, laughter, empathy, and tender gestures were now as significant as his orchestrations. Operation Friendship was no longer merely an experiment. It had become a living entity, unpredictable, resilient, and authentic. Phase 3 was complete. Leonard reviewed his final notes. Every interaction had been anticipated, every potential deviation documented. Yet the core essence of the operation, the authentic bond between Mrs. Holloway and Mark, could not have been fully controlled. The experiment had become a confrontation with unpredictability, a delicate exploration of trust, manipulation, and genuine emotion. Leonard allowed himself a rare moment of satisfaction, recognizing that the participants' relationship had evolved beyond his intervention, a living testament to human unpredictability, empathy, and connection. In the quiet that followed, Leonard reflected on the subtle irony of his obsession. In seeking to control, he had cultivated spontaneity. In manipulating, he had nurtured authenticity. Operation Friendship, designed to measure, record, and control human behavior, had ultimately revealed the unpredictable resilience of the human heart. Leonard's own obsession, meticulous yet unrelenting, had yielded something he could not fully predict, something infinitely more profound than data or control, real connection. As midnight approached, Leonard closed his notebook for the final time, placing pen and sketches neatly on the desk. Outside, the city remained asleep, silent and unaware of the complex choreography that had unfolded in the lives of two unsuspecting participants. Leonard Pike, watchful and obsessed, had completed Operation Friendship, a testament to both human unpredictability and the fragile, enduring power of trust, empathy, and genuine human connection.